The gravel crunched under worn tires as the 2006 Ford F-250 rolled into the parking lot of Whitmore Cattle Company. March 22nd, 2024, 9:15 in the morning. The truck was clean but old. 18 years of South Dakota winters had faded the blue paint to something closer to gray. The passenger side door had a dent from a hailstorm in 2011. The tailgate didn't close flush anymore. Rust bloomed around the wheel wells like slow-spreading cancer. Raymond Cooper killed the engine and sat for a moment in silence. Through the windshield, he could see the main office building. New construction, maybe 5 years old. Red metal siding, white trim, a covered porch with rocking chairs that nobody ever sat in. Behind it stretched the cattle pens, the equipment barns, the hay storage buildings. 3,200 acres of prosperity, or at least the appearance of it. Ray opened the door. The hinges squeaked. They had squeaked for 7 years. He kept meaning to oil them. Never did. He stepped down onto the gravel in boots that had been resoled twice. 13 years old. The leather was cracked across the toe. The laces were mismatched. One brown, one black. Nobody noticed things like that. Or if they did, they never said anything. He wore Wrangler jeans bought on clearance at the farm supply store. $11. A gray thermal shirt under a Carhartt jacket that had seen 17 winters. The cuffs were frayed. There was a patch on the left elbow where he had torn it on barbed wire in 2015. His mother had taught him to sew before she died. The patch was crooked, but it held. Ray was 52 years old, 5'10", 173 pounds. The same weight he had been since he was 28. His face was weathered, deep lines around the eyes from 30 years of squinting into sun and wind. His hands were calloused, scars across the knuckles from 1,000 small cuts and burns and pinches from equipment. Working hands, honest hands, poor hands, most people would think. He walked toward the office. The door had a brass handle, polished. Ray could see his reflection in it, distorted and dark. He pulled the door open and stepped inside. The office was warm, too warm. Thermostat probably set at 74. Ray kept his own place at 62 in winter. The floor was polished concrete, expensive, decorative. A flat-screen television on the wall showed cattle futures and weather radar. Leather furniture arranged around a coffee table made from a cross-section of oak. Awards on the walls, photos, a mounted deer head, everything curated to project success. Behind the desk sat Clayton Whitmore, 49 years old, third-generation rancher. He wore a pearl snap shirt, bright white, starched, the kind that cost $80 and had to be dry cleaned. New Levi's, dark indigo, still had the factory crease, boots that cost more than Ray's monthly grocery bill. Lucchese, ostrich leather, $450. Ray had looked them up once out of curiosity. Clay was on the phone. He held up one finger toward Ray. Wait. His other hand moved a computer mouse, clicking, scrolling. His jaw was tight. Stress. Ray could see it in the small muscles around his eyes. The office smelled like leather and coffee, expensive coffee. Ray could smell the difference. He had tried a cup of the fancy stuff once at a diner in Sioux Falls, $4.50. Tasted the same as the $1.20 coffee at the gas station. He never bought it again. Clay finished his call, hung up, looked at Ray for the first time. His eyes did what everyone's eyes did. Started at the boots, moved up, took inventory. Old clothes, old man, small timer. Maybe here to buy a couple head for a hobby farm. Maybe just looking. Clay's face arranged itself into professional politeness with a foundation of dismissiveness underneath. Help you? The words were cordial. The tone was not. Ray stepped closer to the desk. His boots were quiet on the concrete. He did not remove his cap, did not smile, did not extend his hand for a shake. I need 85 head of Black Angus, quality stock. I can take them today if the price is right. Clay's expression shifted. Not much. Just a small recalculation behind the eyes. 85 head was not a hobby farm purchase. At current market rates, quality Black Angus heifers were running $1,800 to $2,000 per head. Steers slightly less, $1,600 to $1,700. 85 head meant somewhere between $140,000 and $160,000. Real money. Clay leaned back in his leather chair. It was a nice chair, probably cost $1,000. Ray had a folding metal chair at his kitchen table. It had cost $12 in 1998. 85 head. Clay repeated the number like he was tasting it. That's a significant purchase. You running a feedlot operation? Diversifying. Ray's voice was flat, factual. I farm row crops, adding cattle. Clay nodded slowly. His fingers drummed on the desk. A nervous habit. What kind of acreage are we talking? Enough. The answer hung in the air. Clay waited for more. Ray did not provide it. The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 15. Clay broke first. Well, 85 head. I can work with that. You looking at heifers, steers, or a mix? Mix. 60 heifers, 25 steers, good genetics, healthy. I want to see them before we talk price. Clay stood up. Sure, of course. Let me just ask. He paused. This is a cash deal or are you financing? Cash. The word landed like a stone in still water. Clay's eyes narrowed. Just slightly. Ray saw the calculation happening. The doubt, the skepticism. This man in the old jacket in the rusted truck claiming he had $150,000 cash. Clay smiled. It was not a warm smile. Sir, I appreciate you coming in, but 85 head of quality Angus is going to run you, conservatively, 140 to 155,000. That's a substantial amount. Do you have financing lined up? I can recommend a good ag lender if you need. Ray reached into his jacket. Clay's body tensed, just slightly, instinctive. Ray noticed. He pulled out a manila envelope, not quickly, slowly, deliberately. He placed it on Clay's desk. Down payment, $25,000. Cash. I have the rest in my truck. You show me cattle worth buying, and we can do this deal in the next 2 hours. Clay stared at the envelope. It was sealed. Bulky. He picked it up, felt the weight. His thumb ran along the edge. He looked at Ray. Ray looked back. No expression, no challenge, just waiting. Clay opened the envelope. Inside were banded stacks of $100 bills. He pulled one out, riffled through it. 50 bills, $5,000. He counted the stacks. 5 stacks, $25,000. Exact. The office was very quiet. Outside a truck drove by. The sound of the engine faded. Clay set the money down on his desk. He looked at Ray differently now. Not dismissive, not polite, calculating. You actually have $150,000 in your truck. Ray nodded once. 145. That's my budget. If your cattle are worth more, I will adjust. If they are worth less, I pay less. Clay stood there for a long moment. He was used to tire kickers. People who wanted to buy cattle but had no money. People who talked big and produced nothing. Last month, a kid who could not have been older than 25 wanted to buy 40 head on credit. No credit history, no collateral, just optimism. 2 weeks before that, a retiree wanted to trade a 1970s tractor for 30 head. It happened all the time. But this was different. Clay walked to the window, looked out at Ray's truck. He could see the duffel bag on the passenger seat. Black, canvas, old. Could be full of cash, could be full of dirty laundry, but the $25,000 on his desk was real. He turned back to Ray. Mr. Cooper, Raymond Cooper. Mr. Cooper, I apologize if I seem dismissive. I get a lot of people who come through here with big plans and empty pockets. You clearly are not one of those people. Let's go look at cattle. They walked out together. Clay grabbed a jacket off a hook by the door. North Face, $280. Ray had looked that one up too. They crossed the parking lot toward the pens. The morning sun was bright, no clouds. Temperature in the low 40s. Good cattle weather. As they walked, Clay made small talk. Professional, probing. Where are you farming? Franklin County, Nebraska. How much land? Ray did not answer right away. They reached the first pen. Inside were young heifers, black Angus, glossy coats, good weight. Ray leaned on the fence, studied them. Clay waited. Enough to run 85 head plus row crops. That did not answer the question. Clay let it go. He pointed to the heifers. These are yearlings, average weight 870 pounds. Good genetics, out of my breeding program. Sire was a registered bull. Dam lines go back to some of the best herds in the Midwest. I am asking $18.75 per head. Ray watched the cattle. They moved well. No limping. Eyes clear. Coats healthy. He did not write anything down. Just watched. After 2 minutes, he moved to the next pen. Steers this time. Bigger, 900 to 950 pounds. Same quality. They spent an hour like this, moving from pen to pen, Ray asking occasional questions. What are you feeding them? What is the vaccination schedule? Any health issues in the herd? Clay answered everything. Professional, starting to respect this strange, quiet man who asked the right questions. By 10:30, they had looked at 94 head total, more than Ray needed. He pointed to specific animals as they walked. That one. Those three. Not that group. The big one in the back. Clay kept mental count. Ray selected 62 heifers and 26 steers, 88 head total. I only need 85, Ray said. You pick 3 to keep. I will take the rest. Clay did the math in his head. 62 heifers at 1875, 26 steers at 1625. Total came to 158,450. He had hoped for that, but Ray had said 145 budget. They walked back to the office. Neither man spoke. Inside, Clay pulled out a calculator, even though he did not need it. He wrote numbers on a notepad, showed Ray. 62 heifers at 1875. 16,250. 26 steers at 1625, 42,250. Total 158,500. Ray looked at the numbers, looked at Clay. I will give you 60 heifers and 25 steers. 85 head total. 1,800 per heifer. 1,650 per steer. Total 145,250. Cash. Today. Loaded and gone by 2 this afternoon. Clay stared at the counteroffer. It was $7,200 below his asking price, but it was also $145,000 in cash. Today. No financing hassle, no waiting on bank approvals, no risk of a deal falling through. And he needed cash. Badly. His next loan payment was due in 4 days. $28,400. His operating account had $11,200. He had been planning to sell cattle this week anyway. Had to sell cattle this week. The Cooper cash would solve that problem. It would solve it completely. Clay extended his hand. Deal. They shook. Ray's grip was firm, calloused, strong. Clay's hand was softer, manicured. He had gotten a manicure 3 weeks ago. $45. It seemed important at the time. Now with this weathered farmer's hand in his, it seemed foolish. When do you want them delivered? Clay asked. I have a hauler coming at 2. We will load and go. Clay blinked. You already arranged transport? I called yesterday. Told him I might need him today. He is on standby. You were that confident we would make a deal? Ray's face did not change. I researched your herd, looked at your stock online, called people who bought from you. I knew your quality, I knew your price range, I knew we would find a number. Clay felt something shift in his chest. This man had done homework, real homework. Not just shown up with money, he had researched, planned, executed. That was not luck. That was competence. They sat down at Clay's desk. Clay pulled out a standard bill of sale form, started filling it in. 85 head, 60 black Angus heifers, 25 black Angus steers. Sale price $145,250. Seller Clayton Whitmore. Buyer Raymond Cooper. He slid it across the desk for Ray to review. Ray read every word, slowly. When he finished, he nodded. Clay signed. Ray signed. Official. I will get the money. Ray stood and walked out to his truck. Clay watched through the window. Ray opened the passenger door, pulled out the black duffel bag. It looked heavy. He carried it with both hands, came back inside, set it on the desk. He unzipped it. Inside were banded stacks of $100 bills. Lots of them. Ray began pulling them out, setting them on the desk in neat rows. Clay watched. His mouth had gone dry. He had seen cash before, large amounts, but never like this, never delivered by a man who looked like he could not afford breakfast. Ray counted, out loud, methodical, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. He had done this before, counted large amounts of cash, 25,000, 30,000. The stacks grew, 40,000, 50,000. Clay found his voice. Where did you get this money? Ray paused, looked up. His eyes were gray, calm, unreadable. I saved it. You saved $145,000. Farming. Ray went back to counting. 60,000, 70,000, 80,000. I farmed for 31 years, saved every year. This is what happens when you do not spend. 90,000, 100,000. Clay's breathing had changed. Shallow, fast. This was real money, drug dealer money, lottery winner money. But it was not drugs. It was not lottery. It was savings. 3 decades of savings. 120,000, 130,000, 140,000. Ray counted the final stack. 5,250. He arranged it all in neat rows, recounted to verify. $145,250. Exact. He stepped back. Clay stared at the money. All he could think about was his own situation, his own debt, the $2.3 million he owed across 6 different loans, the equity he had borrowed against, the refinancing he had done, twice, the lifestyle he maintained, the truck payments, the mortgage, the country club membership he could not afford to quit because what would people think? And here was this man, this quiet, unremarkable-looking man, with more cash on a desk than Clay had in his entire operating account. Clay's net worth on paper was $2 million, but he owed $2.3 million, which meant he was negative $300,000 if he was being honest, which he never was. "You want to count it?" Ray asked. Clay shook his head. "No, I trust you." It was a strange thing to say given they had just met, but it was true. There was something about Raymond Cooper that radiated integrity, the kind of integrity that came from doing hard things for a long time without complaint. Clay pulled out a receipt book, wrote out a receipt for $145,250, signed it, gave it to Ray. Ray folded it carefully, put it in his wallet. His wallet was old, leather-worn smooth, held together with duct tape on one corner. "I will get the cattle ready for loading," Clay said. 2 o'clock, you said? 2 o'clock. Ray gathered the empty duffel bag, zipped it closed, walked toward the door. He stopped, turned back. "You have good cattle, Mr. Whitmore. I appreciate you working with me on price." Clay nodded. "You are welcome. And Mr. Cooper, if you do not mind my asking, how much land do you actually farm?" Ray's expression did not change. 1,560 acres? Ray nodded. "And you own it or lease it?" "Own it, debt-free." Clay felt his stomach drop. 1,560 acres in Nebraska. Current market value was around $3,400 per acre in that region. Quick math, $5.3 million in land equity, plus $3.4 million in K if that duffel bag was any indication of his total savings. Raymond Cooper was worth $8 to $9 million. And Clay had laughed at him, internally, had judged him by his truck, his clothes, his boots. Ray walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Clay stood alone in his office, surrounded by awards and photos and mounted animal heads and a pile of cash on his desk that represented more liquidity than he had seen in 3 years. He sat down heavily in his expensive chair, pulled out his phone, opened Google, typed Raymond Cooper, Nebraska farmer. The first result was an article from the Nebraska Farm Bureau newsletter, published 11 months ago, April 2023. The headline read, "Financial Stability in Uncertain Times, a profile of Franklin County's most disciplined farmer." Clay clicked it, read. The article profiled Raymond Cooper, age 52, owner of 1,560 acres, debt-free, estimated net worth $8.7 million, known in the farming community for extreme frugality and financial discipline, drives a vehicle nearly 2 decades old, lives in a modest home, reinvests every profit back into land acquisition, has never taken a vacation, has never bought a new vehicle, lives on approximately $10,000 per year, a financial anomaly in modern agriculture. The article quoted Cooper. One sentence, "I do not save to be rich. I save because spending money on things I do not need makes me uncomfortable." Clay set his phone down, put his head in his hands. He had just made a deal with a man worth $8.7 million. A man he had dismissed as small-time. A man who looked poor and was rich, while Clay looked rich and was drowning. His phone buzzed. Text from his wife, Maggie. "Did you make the cattle sale? We need that payment money." Clay looked at the cash on his desk. "Yes, made it, 145. 3 dots appeared. Maggie was typing. "Good. Pay the loan Friday. Do not spend it on anything else." The words stung. His own wife did not trust him with money, and she was right not to. Last month, he had sold $60,000 in cattle, and within 2 weeks had spent $18,000 on a down payment for a new truck. A truck he did not need. A truck that made him feel successful when potential buyers drove onto his property. Image. Always image. He texted back, "I will, I promise." He began gathering the cash, sorting it into deposit bags. He would take it to the bank this afternoon, put it in the operating account, make the loan payment Friday, survive another month, kick the can down the road. Again. As he worked, his mind wandered to Raymond Cooper, to the choices that led a man to save $8 million while looking like he had nothing, and the choices that led Clay to be worth theoretically $2 million, but actually negative $300,000 while looking like he had everything. At 1:45, a cattle hauling truck pulled into the lot. Ray's truck followed it. They parked by the loading chutes. Clay walked out to meet them. The hauler was a weathered man in his 60s, driving a rig that had seen better days. But it was clean, well-maintained. The trailer was solid. Ray and the hauler worked together setting up the chutes. They moved with efficiency. No wasted motion. By 2:15, they were ready. Clay's ranch hands brought the first group of heifers. Ray stood at the chute watching each one load, counting, making sure he got what he paid for. It took 2 hours. 85 head loaded, secured, ready for transport. The hauler closed the trailer, locked it, shook Ray's hand, drove off toward Nebraska. Ray walked over to Clay, extended his hand one more time. "Thank you for fair dealing." They shook. Clay held on a moment longer than necessary. "Mr. Cooper, can I ask you something?" Ray waited. "How did you do it? How did you save that much?" Ray looked at him for a long moment, like he was deciding whether to answer, whether this man who had judged him deserved the truth. Finally, he spoke. "I started with nothing, worked 3 jobs, saved everything, bought land when I could afford it, paid it off fast as I could, never borrowed unless I had to, never spent on anything that did not make me money or keep me alive. 31 years, no vacations, no new trucks, no country club, just work and save and buy land and repeat." "That sounds lonely." It was. Ray's voice was quiet, still is. "Was it worth it?" Ray looked out at the empty pens, at the land, at his old truck. "I do not know yet. Ask me in 10 years when I see what I did with it." He walked to his truck, got in. The engine started with a rough idle. Black smoke puffed from the exhaust. Needs work, Clay thought. But Ray did not seem to care. He backed out, drove away. The truck disappeared down the gravel road, trailing a small cloud of dust. Clay stood in his parking lot. Alone, the sun was starting to sink. 4:30, the day was almost over. He thought about the $82,000 Ram 3500 sitting in his driveway at home. Thought about the mortgage payment due next week, the credit card bills, the equipment loans, the land loans, the operating line of credit maxed out at $400,000. He thought about Raymond Cooper driving away in a truck worth maybe $4,000 with $8 million in the bank. Clay pulled out his phone, called his wife. Maggie answered. "Hey, did they load the cattle?" "Yeah, all done." "Good, you sound weird. What is wrong?" Clay looked at the empty road where Ray's truck had disappeared. "Nothing. I just met someone today who made me realize I have been doing everything wrong for 23 years. Maggie was quiet. Then, "What do you mean?" "I mean I inherited $3.2 million and turned it into negative $300,000 while pretending to be successful. And I just sold cattle to a guy who started with nothing and built $8 million by being the opposite of everything I am." Silence on the line. Clay could hear his wife breathing, could hear her processing. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft, sad. "I have been trying to tell you that for 6 years, Clay." "I know. Are you finally ready to listen?" Clay walked back toward his office. The sun was lower now, shadows stretching long across the parking lot. Inside through the window, he could see his awards on the wall, his photos with politicians and celebrities, his mounted deer head, all the symbols of success that meant nothing when the bills came due. "Yeah, I am ready to listen." "Good, because we need to talk tonight. Really talk about what we are going to do before we lose everything." "Okay." He hung up, stood in the doorway of his office, looked at his desk where $145,000 in cash had sat 3 hours ago. Money that would make one payment, solve 1 month's problem, do nothing to fix the underlying disease. Clay Whitmore was 49 years old, third-generation rancher, owner of 3,200 acres, driver of an $82,000 truck, member of the country club, known by everyone as successful, respected, envied even. And he was broke, not poor, broke. There was a difference. Poor meant you never had anything. Broke meant you had everything and owed more than it was worth. He thought about Ray, about 31 years of discipline, about choosing substance over image, about the quiet accumulation of real wealth while everyone else accumulated the appearance of it. Clay sat down at his desk, opened his laptop, pulled up his financial spreadsheet, the one he kept hidden from everyone, even Maggie, the one that showed the truth. Assets, 4.3 million. Liabilities, 2.3 million. Net worth, 2 million. But that did not tell the whole story, because his assets were mostly land, illiquid, and his liabilities were monthly payments, 127,000 per year in debt service, and his income after expenses was 180,000 in a good year. Margin, 53,000. Barely enough to live on, barely enough to maintain the image, not enough to save, not enough to ever get ahead, just enough to survive, month to month, year to year, until something broke, until a bad crop year or a market crash or an unexpected expense pushed him over the edge into bankruptcy. He was one disaster away from losing everything. Raymond Cooper was 100 disasters away from being uncomfortable. That was the difference. That was what 31 years of discipline bought. Not wealth, security, the ability to absorb shocks, the freedom to make choices, the peace that came from owing nothing to anyone. Clay closed the laptop, turned off the lights in his office, walked out to his truck, the Ram 3500, bright red, chrome everywhere, leather seats, heated and cooled, navigation system, backup camera, all the options. 64,000 financed at 6.8% over 6 years. Monthly payment, $1,043. He climbed in, started it. The engine purred, smooth, powerful. He pulled out onto the highway, drove toward home, passed 3 vehicles on the way, all newer than Ray's F-250, all driven by farmers who looked successful, all probably drowning just like him. At home, Maggie was making dinner. Their house was 4,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, granite countertops, hardwood floors, mortgage, $420,000 at 4.2%, monthly payment, $2,068. They ate dinner mostly in silence. After, when the dishes were done and the kids were in their rooms, they sat at the kitchen table. Maggie brought a folder. Inside were bank statements, credit card bills, loan documents, all the evidence of their financial reality that they both pretended did not exist. She spread it out on the table between them. "We need to talk about this." Clay looked at the papers, looked at his wife, saw the stress in her eyes, the fear, the exhaustion of carrying this secret, of pretending everything was fine when it was not. "Okay, let's talk." And they did, for 3 hours, going through every expense, every debt, every choice that had led them here. It was painful, humbling, necessary. By midnight, they had a plan. Not a good plan, not a comfortable plan, but a plan that might save them if they had the courage to follow it. Clay thought about Raymond Cooper, about discipline, about choosing hard things, about 31 years of delayed gratification building something real. He looked at his wife. "I met a man today who taught me more in 2 hours than I learned in 4 years of ag school." "What did he teach you?" "That wealth is not what you show. It is what you own. And debt is not a tool, it is a trap." Maggie reached across the table, took his hand. "Are we going to be okay?" Clay squeezed her hand, thought about the plan they had just made, the sacrifices it would require, the humiliation, the admission of failure. "I do not know. But I know we cannot keep doing what we have been doing." That was the truth. The only truth that mattered. Change or die, figuratively, financially, maybe literally given the stress. Outside the window, the South Dakota night was dark and clear. Stars everywhere, cold, beautiful, indifferent to human struggles. Somewhere out there, Raymond Cooper was probably asleep in his modest home, debt-free, secure, alone but free. And Clay was here, in his big house with his big mortgage and his big problems, surrounded by family but trapped. He knew which man he would rather be. The question was whether he had the strength to become him. That question would take years to answer, but tonight, March 22nd, 2024, sitting at his kitchen table with his wife and their financial catastrophe spread between them, Clayton Whitmore made a decision. He would try. He would try to learn what Raymond Cooper knew, try to build what he had built, Try to choose discipline over image, substance over appearance, reality over pretense. It was late, past midnight. Time to sleep. Tomorrow would come early. It always did. But tomorrow would be different. Because tomorrow Clay would start making different choices. Small choices. Hard choices. Choices that would hurt his pride but save his future. Choices that a quiet man in an old truck had been making for 31 years. Choices that built $8 million in silence while the world watched the loud men build debt. Clay turned off the kitchen lights, followed Maggie upstairs, lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about compound interest, about how it worked both ways. Saving compounded into wealth, spending compounded into debt. He had been compounding the wrong direction for 23 years. Starting tomorrow, he would reverse course. It would take time, years probably, maybe decades. But Raymond Cooper had shown him it was possible. One man, one old truck, $8 million. The math was simple. The execution was hard. But simple and hard was better than complex and impossible. Clay closed his eyes. Tomorrow would be day one of a very long journey. The journey from image to substance, from debt to freedom, from Clayton Whitmore, the successful-looking failure, to someone he could respect when he looked in the mirror. Someone like Raymond Cooper, the man who proved that the richest person in the room often drives the oldest truck, and the poorest person often wears the most expensive boots. 31 years earlier, August 1993, Waterloo, Iowa. Raymond Cooper was 21 years old. He stood in the parking lot of the John Deere manufacturing plant at 6:45 in the morning, first day of work. The building stretched before him like a cathedral of steel and concrete. 3 stories, half a mile long. The sound of machinery already humming inside, even though the shift did not start until 7. Ray wore new work boots, $68 at the farm supply store. Steel toe. The leather was stiff. They would give him blisters for the first 2 weeks. He knew this, had been told by the hiring manager. Bring Band-Aids, lots of them. His lunch pail was old, had been his father's, dented aluminum. Inside was a sandwich, peanut butter, 2 slices of bread, an apple, a thermos of water, no chips, no cookies, no soda. Cost to make, 87 cents. He walked toward the employee entrance. Around him, other workers arrived. Most drove newer vehicles, trucks from the late 80s, a few cars from the early 90s. Ray had taken the bus. Fare was $1.25 each way. He had calculated that over a year, that was $647.50, assuming he worked 259 days. A car would cost more. Insurance, gas, maintenance. The bus made financial sense even though it added 90 minutes to his day. Inside, he was issued a time card. Employee number 8,243. Welding department. Starting wage $13.50 per hour. Before taxes, that was $28,080 per year, assuming 40 hours per week, 52 weeks. After federal tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare, and union dues, he would take home approximately $21,400. Ray had already done the math, many times, lying awake at night in his childhood bedroom. $21,400. He lived with his parents, paid them $200 per month rent, $2,400 per year. Leaves $17,000. Food, $3,000 per year. Clothes and necessities, $600. Transportation, $650. Miscellaneous, $350. Total expenses, $7,000. Savings, $14,000 per year. At $14,000 per year, it would take 4.3 years to save $60,000. Enough for a down payment on land. The shift started. Ray's trainer was a man named Bobby, 56 years old. Had worked at Deere for 34 years, hands like worn leather, scars up and down his forearms from sparks and burns. Welding is easy to learn and impossible to master. Bobby's voice was rough, damaged from years of smoking. You will know how to make a decent bead in 2 weeks. You will spend the rest of your life trying to make a perfect one. Ray learned, fast. By the end of the first week, he could run a clean bead on mild steel. By the end of the first month, he was working at full speed. By the end of 6 months, Bobby told the supervisor that Ray was the best natural welder he had trained in a decade. Ray did not care about being the best. He cared about the paycheck. Every 2 weeks, a slip of paper that represented $788 after taxes. He would cash it at the bank, take out $40 for expenses, Deposit $748 into savings. His coworkers thought he was strange. They would invite him for beers after shift. He would decline. They would talk about the new truck they were buying, the base boat, the vacation to the Ozarks. Ray would listen and say nothing. He drove nothing, owned nothing, wanted nothing except land. His mother worried about him. At dinner, she would watch him eat, silent, methodical, finishing every bite because wasting food was wasting money. Ray, you need to live a little. Her voice was gentle. You are 21. You should be dating, going out, having fun. I am having fun. Saving money is not fun. It is for me. She did not understand, could not understand. She had grown up poor, truly poor, had watched her parents struggle, had married Ray's father when she was 19 because he had a steady job at the grain elevator, had lived paycheck to paycheck for 30 years. To her, having money meant spending it, enjoying it, before something took it away. To Ray, having money meant safety, security, the ability to never be trapped, never be desperate, never be at the mercy of an employer or a landlord or a banker. By December of 1993, Ray had saved $8,200. He kept it in a savings account at the credit union. 0.75% interest. Ridiculous. But safe. FDIC insured. He would move it to something better when he had more. By December of 1995, Ray had saved $29,600. Still living with his parents. Still riding the bus. Still packing peanut butter sandwiches. His father had stopped asking when he was going to move out. His mother had stopped asking when he was going to bring home a girlfriend. They had accepted that their son was different, odd, obsessed with money in a way that seemed unhealthy, but he was not spending it on drugs or gambling or anything destructive. He was just saving it, hoarding it like a miser from a Dickens novel. They worried, but they let him be. By August of 1999, Ray had saved $62,400. He was 27 years old, had worked at John Deere for 6 years, had never missed a day, had never been late, had never taken a vacation, had earned a reputation as the most reliable welder in the plant and the strangest man anyone had ever met. He quit on a Tuesday, gave 2 weeks' notice. His supervisor tried to talk him out of it. Cooper, you are up for a promotion. Lead welder, $17 an hour. I appreciate that, but I am buying land. Land? You're going to farm. Yes, you do not know anything about farming. I will learn. The supervisor shook his head. You are making a mistake. Farming is brutal. You will be broke in 2 years. Ray did not argue, just finished his 2 weeks. On his last day, Bobby walked him out to the parking lot. You got a ride? Bus, Bobby laughed. 6 years and you still take the goddamn bus. You saved all that money and did not buy a car? Did not need one. What are you going to do now? You bought land. You need equipment. A truck at least. I will buy what I need when I need it. Bobby lit a cigarette, studied Ray through the smoke. You are either the smartest man I ever met or the dumbest. I have not decided which. Time will tell. Yeah. Bobby flicked ash onto the pavement. Time will tell. Ray rode the bus home. For the last time as a factory worker, he had $62,400 in the bank, and he had found land. 320 acres in Franklin County, Nebraska. The seller was an 81-year-old man named Eugene Hartley. Widower, no children. Tired, ready to be done. He had listed the property for $1,100 per acre, $352,000 total. Ray had driven out to see it. 5 hours each way, took a Greyhound bus. The land was beautiful. Rolling hills, rich soil, creek running through the northeast corner. Hartley met him at the property line in an old International Harvester pickup. You the fellow who called about the land? Yes, sir. Raymond Cooper. You look young. I am 27. You got money? I have 62,000. Hartley nodded slowly. That is less than 20% down. You will need financing for the rest. I know. I have been talking to banks. That was a lie. Ray had talked to one bank, Blackwood Agricultural Bank in Franklin County. The loan officer was a man named Leonard Blackwood, 58 years old, third-generation banker. He had looked at Ray across a massive oak desk like he was looking at an insect. Mr. Cooper, you have no farming experience, no collateral beyond your savings, no credit history. I am not comfortable lending $290,000 to someone in your position. I have been saving for 6 years, never missed a payment on anything. I can provide references from my employer. Your employer is a factory, not a farm. Growing corn is not the same as welding steel. I understand that. I will learn. Learning costs money. Money you will not have when you are buried in debt you cannot service. The meeting had lasted 12 minutes. Ray left with no loan, no options, no plan except to keep looking. He told Hartley this. Standing on the land, grasshoppers clicking in the tall grass, sun beating down. The old man listened, spat tobacco juice. Thought, I do not like banks. Hartley's voice was gravel. Had a cancer scare last year. Doctors wanted $50,000 for treatment. Bank would not lend it because I am too old. Too risky. Had to pay cash. Wiped out my savings. Banks are vultures. Ray said nothing. I will sell you this land. Hartley pointed across the acres. 320 acres. 340,000. You give me 62,000 down. I will carry the note for 278 at 8.5% over 20 years. Payment will be about 1,900 a month. Ray did the math instantly. 22,800 per year. More than he had been saving, more than he would make farming the first few years. It was tight, possibly impossible, definitely risky. I accept. They shook hands. Hartley spat again. You are either brave or stupid, son. Maybe both. The closing was in September 1999. Ray signed papers for 90 minutes. The title company representative kept giving him concerned looks. He was 27. Buying land with seller financing at a very high interest rate with almost no margin for error. It looked like a disaster waiting to happen. Ray did not care what it looked like. He cared what it was. It was his. 320 acres. His name on the deed. Raymond Cooper, owner. That night, he slept on the land, in the back of a 1986 Chevrolet S10 pickup he had bought for $800. The truck barely ran. Burned oil, no heat, cracked windshield. But it moved. That was enough. He lay in the truck bed under a sleeping bag, looking up at stars, doing math in his head. He had $2,000 left in savings. His first payment to Hartley was due in 30 days. $1,900. That left him $100 for the entire month. He needed to make money. Fast. And he needed to farm. Ray had no equipment, no tractor, no planter, no combine, nothing. But the neighbor to the south was a farmer named Joel Price, 42 years old, ran 800 acres. Good operation. Ray had met him during the property tour. Joel had equipment, and Joel was willing to rent it for a fee, $120 per acre for full service, planting and harvesting. Ray had 320 acres. That was $38,400. Ray did not have $38,400, but he had collateral now. He had land. He went back to Blackwood Agricultural Bank, asked for an operating loan, $40,000 to cover first-year expenses. Leonard Blackwood looked at him with something like amusement. Mr. Cooper, you just bought land you cannot afford. Now you want to borrow money to farm it. This is a textbook case of over-leverage. I need capital to operate. You need a job at a factory. This farming experiment will bankrupt you. Will you give me the loan or not? No? Ray left. Drove to 3 other banks. All said no. New farmer, high debt-to-income ratio. Too risky. He was out of options. Joel Price found him sitting on the tailgate of his truck, staring at the empty field. It was October. Planting season had passed. Ray had missed it. The land would sit fallow for a year. No income. But the payments would still be due. Heard you are having trouble getting a loan? Joel's voice was kind. Yes, sir. Banks are worthless. Always have been. Joel leaned against the truck. I will make you a deal. I will plant and harvest this land next spring. Custom work. $38,000. You pay me after harvest from the crop proceeds. No money down. Ray looked at him. Why would you do that? Because Eugene Hartley was a good man, and he believed in you enough to carry your note. That is good enough for me. What if the crop fails? Then you owe me, and we figure it out. But the crop will not fail. This is good land. They shook hands. Ray felt something he had not felt in a long time. Gratitude and something else. The weight of obligation. Joel was taking a risk on him. That meant something. The winter of 1999 to 2000 was brutal. Ray lived in a camper trailer he bought for $1,500. No running water. No heat except a kerosene heater that cost $12 to fill and lasted 5 days. He rationed it, wore layers, slept in a sleeping bag rated to 0 degrees. He worked construction, day labor, $30 a day cash. showed up at 6 a.m. at the contractor's parking lot. If they needed bodies, he got picked. If not, he went hungry. Some weeks he made 150, some weeks he made nothing. His first payment to Heartland came due. He paid it, $1,900, left him with $46. Second payment came due. He had saved $800 doing construction, borrowed $1,100 from his parents, paid Heartland. His mother cried when she gave him the money. You are killing yourself over this land. I will pay you back. I do not want the money back. I want you to stop this. I cannot stop. Why not? Because if I stop, I will have to go back to the factory. And if I go back, I will spend the rest of my life making someone else rich while I stay poor. You are poor now. Ray looked at his mother, saw the fear in her eyes, the love, the desperation to protect him from himself. I am poor now, but in 8 years I will own this land, and then I will not be poor anymore. 8 years? She shook her head. You are going to suffer for 8 years? Yes, he did suffer. The winter was starvation. The spring of 2000 was hope. Joel planted the acres, corn and soybeans, rotation. The crop came up good, strong. By August, it was clear it would be a decent harvest. In October, Joel combined it. The yield was good. Corn averaged 168 bushels per acre on the 200 acres planted. Soybeans averaged 52 bushels on the 120 acres. At market prices, that was roughly $76,000 gross. Joel took his $38,400. Seed and chemical costs were $11,000. Heartland's payment for the year was $22,800. Property taxes were $2,400. That left Ray with $1,400 net. $1,400 profit for a year of work. It was almost nothing. Less than minimum wage if you calculated hourly. But it was something, and more importantly, he had made a payment. The land was still his. Year 2 was better. He netted $4,200. Year 3, he netted $7,000. He continued working construction winters, living in the camper, eating cheap, rice, beans, eggs, potatoes. He calculated his food cost at $9 per week, $468 per year. His mother died in the spring of 2003. Cancer, fast, aggressive. She was diagnosed in January, gone by March, 58 years old. Ray sat by her hospital bed the last week, holding her hand. She was delirious from the morphine, in and out. But in one of her clear moments, she looked at him. Ray, promise me something, anything. Promise me this land does not become your whole life. Promise me you will find someone, have a family, be happy. I promise. She smiled. Weak, tired, liar. You are just like your father, stubborn, foolish. But I love you. She died 2 days later. The funeral cost $8,000. Ray's father paid for it. He had a small life insurance policy. $15,000. He gave Ray $5,000. Your mother would have wanted you to have this. Ray tried to refuse. His father insisted. Ray took it, used it to make 2 payments to Heartland, got ahead of the schedule for the first time in 4 years. By 2007, Ray had paid off the land. 8 years instead of 20. He was 35 years old. Owned 320 acres free and clear. His net worth was approximately $480,000. The land had appreciated to $1,500 per acre. He had survived on less than $10,000 per year for 8 years. Had worked construction every winter. Had farmed every summer. Had not dated. Had not taken a vacation. Had not bought anything that was not absolutely necessary. Joel Price threw him a barbecue to celebrate. Just the 2 of them and Joel's wife and son. Garrett was 7 years old, blonde, missing his front teeth. He looked at Ray like he was some kind of wizard. Mr. Cooper paid off a whole farm in 8 years. Joel ruffled his son's hair. That is what discipline looks like. Garrett nodded solemnly. When I grow up, I am going to be disciplined too. Everyone laughed, but Ray saw something in the boy's eyes. Belief, admiration. It made him uncomfortable. He was not a hero. He was just a man who refused to quit. Then came 2008, the financial crisis. The world economy collapsed. Credit froze. Land values plummeted. Ray's 320 acres that had been worth $480,000 in 2007 dropped to $312,000 by 2009. 35% decline. Everyone said it was a disaster, and for most people it was. Farmers who were leveraged could not refinance, could not sell. Many went bankrupt. But Ray had no debt. The paper value of his land meant nothing. and the crisis created opportunity. His neighbor to the west was a farmer named Donald Mitchell. 68 years old, he owned 420 acres, but he also owed $380,000. He had refinanced in 2006 at the peak, taken cash out for a new combine, new truck. Now the bank was calling the loan, wanted him to pay down $200,000 or they would foreclose. Donald did not have $200,000. Nobody was lending. He had to sell. He listed the land for $800 per acre, $336,000, 30% below 2006 prices. Nobody was buying. The market was frozen. Ray went to see him. They sat on Donald's porch. Donald was crying, not loud, just tears running down his weathered face. I am going to lose it. 42 years I've been farming this ground, and I am going to lose it. What do you need? Donald wiped his face. Need $336,000, but I will take $310. Just to be done, just to clear the debt and have something left. Ray went home, looked at his finances. He had saved $180,000 cash since paying off his land. He had equity in his land of $312,000 based on current depressed values. But he did not want to borrow against it. He could offer cash, $180,000. Donald would have to carry a note for the rest. But Donald was desperate. Ray made the offer, $180,000 cash. Seller carry $130,000 at 6% for 10 years. Payment would be $1,440 per month. Donald accepted immediately. The closing was fast. By December 2008, Ray owned 740 acres. His total debt was $130,000. His land value, even at depressed prices, was $490,000. Net worth, $360,000, down from $480,000. But he had more land, and the land would recover. Through the 2000s and 10s, Ray continued the pattern. Save, wait, buy when others were desperate. He bought another 180 acres in 2012, paid cash, bought 240 acres in 2015, paid cash, sold 80 acres in 2018 to a wind farm development for $16,000 per acre, $1.28 million total. Use that windfall to buy 400 acres of premium ground at $3,200 per acre. That was $1.28 million exactly. In 2020, a small neighboring parcel came available, 80 acres. An elderly widow needed to move to assisted living. Her children lived out of state, wanted a quick sale, listed at $3,400 per acre, $272,000. Ray paid cash, brought his total from 1,480 to 1,560 acres. By 2024, he owned 1,560 acres, worth approximately $5.3 million at current average value of $3,400 per acre. Plus, he had $3.4 million in cash and treasury bonds. Total net worth $8.7 million. He still lived in a camper, still drove the 2006 F-250 he had bought used in 2008, still spent roughly $10,000 per year, still had no wife, no children, no friends except Joel Price, who had died of cancer in 2021. Joel's son, Garrett, had spoken at the funeral, talked about his father's integrity, his kindness, mentioned Ray specifically, said his father had always told him if he ever needed help to go to Ray Cooper. Ray was the only man Joel truly trusted. Ray had sat in the back pew, alone, listening, feeling the weight of Joel's trust, knowing he had never properly repaid it, never properly thanked him, never properly acknowledged that without Joel's initial faith in 1999, none of this would have existed. After the funeral, Garrett approached him, 28 years old now, married, had taken over the family farm. He shook Ray's hand. "Thank you for coming. Your father was a good man. He thought the world of you." Ray nodded, did not know what to say. "If you ever need anything," Garrett's voice was earnest, "anything at all, you let me know. I will." But Ray knew he would not. He did not need anything. That was the problem. He had $8.7 million and nothing to do with it except watch it grow. No legacy, no purpose, just accumulation for its own sake. Meanwhile, across the state line in South Dakota, another story was unfolding. A story that ran parallel to Ray's but diverged in every meaningful way. Clayton Whitmore was born in 1975 to a ranching family. His grandfather had started Whitmore Cattle Company in 1954, built it from nothing. By the time he died in 1985, he owned 1,200 acres. His son, Clay's father, expanded it to 1,800 acres by 1995. The Whitmore family was respected, known, successful. Clay grew up with everything. New trucks every few years, vacations to Colorado, college paid for. He attended South Dakota State, agricultural business, graduated in 1997, came home to work the ranch. His father taught him the operation, how to breed cattle, how to manage grazing, how to market. Clay was good at it, natural. By 2000, the ranch was grossing $400,000 per year, netting $200,000 after expenses. Then in August 2001, Clay's father had a heart attack. Massive. Died in the field, 56 years old. Clay was 26. He inherited everything. 1,800 acres worth approximately $2.7 million at $1,500 per acre. 400 head of cattle worth another $300,000. Equipment worth $200,000. Cash in accounts of $180,000. Total inheritance, $3.38 million. And zero debt. His father had paid everything off. Clay was wealthy beyond what most people achieve in a lifetime, and he had not earned a penny of it. The first year he did fine, continued what his father had built, grossed $420,000, netted $210,000, took a salary of $80,000, saved $130,000. He was on track to be worth $10 million by 50. But Clay did not want to wait. He wanted to grow, be bigger than his father, be known as the man who took Whitmore cattle to the next level. In 2003, he borrowed $500,000, bought 600 more acres at $830 per acre. Good price. The land was solid, but he financed the whole thing, $500,000 at 7.2% over 20 years. Payment was about $3,300 per month. He could cover it, barely, but then he made another decision. He built a new house, 4,000 square feet, top of the line everything. Cost $450,000. He put down $30,000, financed $420,000. Payment was $2,800 per month. Combined, his new debt service was $6,100 per month, $73,200 per year. His net income was $210,000. Still plenty of margin, still safe. But then land values jumped. 2005 and 2006 were boom years. His 2,400 acres went from $2 million to $4.8 million. He had equity, massive equity, $3 million in equity. The bank called him. Friendly, we notice you have substantial equity. Would you like to access some of it? Rates are low. Great time to expand. Clay thought about it. With another $1 million, he could buy 800 more acres. Upgrade equipment. Really grow the operation. The banker made it sound smart. Leverage. Use other people's money. That is how rich people get richer. Clay borrowed $1.2 million. Bought 800 acres at $3,000 per acre for $2.4 million. Financed the gap of $1.2 million at 6.4%. Payment was about $8,000 per month. Now his total debt service was $14,100 per month, $169,200 per year. His income had grown with the added acres. He was netting around $280,000, still had margin of $110,000, still felt safe. He upgraded his truck, $80,000 diesel, joined the country club, $12,000 per year. His wife wanted to remodel the kitchen, $90,000. He paid cash from operating funds. By 2008, he owed $2.8 million, but his assets were worth over $6 million. On paper, he was rich, net worth of $3.2 million. Then the crash. Land values dropped 40%. His $6 million in assets became $3.6 million. His debt stayed at $2.8 million. Net worth dropped to $800,000. And his income collapsed. Cattle prices crashed. Feed costs stayed high. He went from netting $280,000 to netting $95,000. But his debt service stayed at $169,000. He could not cover it. He refinanced, extended terms, lowered payments to $12,000 per month, $144,000 per year, but the new loan added fees and penalties. His total debt went up to $3.1 million even though he was paying. Through the 2000s and 10s, Clay rode a treadmill, making payments, never getting ahead, refinancing when necessary, pulling equity when land values recovered, using that equity for lifestyle, new trucks, vacations, kids' college. He told himself he was investing, building, but really he was spending. By 2019, land values had recovered. His 3,200 acres were worth over $10 million at $3,200 per acre, but he owed $3.4 million, net worth of $6.6 million. Sounds good, but it was less than the $7 million he should have had if he had just saved his profits for 18 years instead of spending them. Then COVID. Chaos. Commodity prices swung wild. He made bad bets, lost $340,000 in the futures market trying to hedge. Panic sold at the bottom. By 2024, he had 2,600 acres, had sold 600 in 2019 to cover the futures losses. Those acres were worth $8.8 million. He owed $2.3 million, net worth approximately $6.5 million. But that was not the real number, because it assumed he could sell at current prices. In reality, if he had to liquidate fast, he would get maybe $7,500 per acre. That was $19.5 million gross. Minus 2.3 debt, minus selling costs and taxes. He would net maybe $15.5 million. But he was not selling. He was operating. And his operating reality was income of $180,000, debt service of $127,000. Margin of $53,000. Out of that, he had to live, feed his family, maintain equipment, cover property taxes. Real disposable income was maybe $20,000. He was asset rich and cash poor, the worst kind of broke. And now sitting in his kitchen at midnight on March 22nd, 2024, with his wife Maggie and their financial disaster spread across the table, Clay understood what he had done. He had inherited $3.38 million. 23 years later, he was worth maybe $2 million net after real liquidation costs. He had gone backward, while looking successful, while everyone envied him. Maggie was crying, not loud, just tears, like Donald Mitchell on his porch in 2008. How did this happen? Clay wanted to blame the banks, the market, bad luck. But he knew it happened because of choices, 1,000 small choices. New truck instead of old truck, vacation instead of savings, leverage instead of patience, image instead of substance. It happened because he wanted to look successful more than he wanted to be successful. And the cruelest part was that Raymond Cooper had started with nothing, had built $8.7 million, while Clay had started with $3.38 million and built $2 million. Ray had added 8.7. Clay had lost 1.38. The same years, the same economy, the same opportunities, different choices, different results. Maggie looked at him across the table. Her eyes were red. What are we going to do? Clay thought about Ray, about discipline, about delayed gratification, about choosing hard things. We are going to change, starting tomorrow. How? I do not know yet, but I am going to find out. He meant it. For the first time in 23 years, Clayton Whitmore was ready to admit he did not have the answers, was ready to learn, was ready to be humble. And the teacher would be a man in an old jacket driving an old truck living in a camper. The man who proved that wealth is not what you inherit. It is what you keep. And what you keep is determined by what you do not spend. Clay looked at the numbers on the table. $2 million net worth. Should be $10 million. Lost $8 million to lifestyle. $8 million in trucks and vacations and country clubs and trying to impress people who did not care. Tomorrow he would start earning it back. Not the money, the discipline, the choices, the character. Tomorrow he would start becoming someone worth being. Someone like Raymond Cooper, the man who saved when everyone spent, who waited when everyone rushed, who built when everyone borrowed. The man who proved that time and discipline compound into freedom, while time and spending compound into slavery. Clay stood up from the table, turned off the lights. Tomorrow would come early, and tomorrow would be different. Because tonight Clayton Whitmore had seen the truth, and the truth had set him free. Free to change, free to choose better, free to spend the next 20 years undoing the damage of the last 23. It would not be easy, but easy had led him here. Hard would lead him somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere real. April 3rd, 2024, 11:17 at night. The knock on Ray's camper door was soft, hesitant, like whoever was out there almost did not want to be heard. Ray was awake. He was always awake at 11:17. Insomnia had been his companion for 3 decades. Sleep came hard when your mind constantly calculated compound interest in crop yields in market futures. He sat at his small fold-down table reading a book about soil conservation by lamplight. The camper was cold. He kept the heat at 58 degrees. Propane cost money. The knock came again, slightly louder. Ray stood, opened his door. Outside in the darkness stood Garrett Price, Joel's son. 28 years old but looking younger in the harsh yellow light from the camper. His face was pale, eyes red, hands shaking. "Mr. Cooper." I am sorry to come so late. Ray stepped back. Come in. Garrett climbed the two metal steps into the camper. The space was tiny, maybe 120 square feet total. Everything was old but immaculate. The floor swept clean, dishes washed and stacked, bed made with military corners. The only decoration was a single photograph on the wall. Ray's mother, taken sometime in the 1980s, smiling, young, healthy. Sit, Ray gestured to the small bench seat. Garrett sat, his hands would not stop shaking. He pressed them between his knees, tried to still them, failed. Ray poured water from a jug into a mug, set it in front of Garrett. The young man picked it up, drank, set it down. The mug rattled against the table. I did not know where else to go. Ray sat across from him, waited. Silence was often the best question. Garrett's voice cracked when he finally spoke. I am going to lose the farm. The words hung in the small space. Ray watched Garrett's face, saw the shame there, the desperation, the fear. He had seen that look before, on Donald Mitchell's face in 2008, on a dozen other farmers who had over-leveraged and underperformed. Tell me, Garrett told him. The whole story came out in a rush. How he had inherited 280 acres from Joel in 2021. Good land, worth $952,000 at $3,400 per acre. Paid off, clear, a gift that most young farmers would never receive. But Garrett wanted to grow, expand, make his father proud. People told him, you have to leverage to compete, use the equity, grow or die. That is modern agriculture. So in 2022, he borrowed against the inherited land, $680,000. The bank was happy to lend, 70% loan to value, great credit. The future of farming, they gave him 3.8% variable rate. Payment was $2,900 per month, manageable. He used the money to buy equipment, a used combine, $340,000, good condition, necessary to harvest his own crop instead of paying Joel's old custom rates. And he bought more land, 180 acres adjacent to his property, listed at $1,900 per acre, $342,000. He offered $340. They accepted, brought his total to 460 acres. On paper, it made sense. 460 acres generating income, new equipment paid for. He could farm efficiently, cut costs, grow profits. The plan was solid, except the interest rate was variable. In 2022, the Fed started raising rates, aggressively, fighting inflation. By 2024, Garrett's 3.8% had become 9.2%. His $2,900 payment had become $5,700. His income from farming 460 acres was about $78,000 gross. After expenses, maybe $52,000 net. $5,700 per month was $68,400 per year. He could not make it. He fell behind. 3 months, 4 months, now 6 months. He owed $47,000 in past due payments. The bank had sent the final notice. Foreclose in 23 days, if not current. Garrett finished talking, put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. Not crying, worse. The dry, heaving despair of a man who has no tears left. Ray sat very still, thinking, calculating. $47,000 would bring Garrett current, but current meant he still owed $633,000 at 9.2%. Still had a $5,700 monthly payment, still could not service the debt. Paying $47,000 would not save Garrett. It would just delay the inevitable by a few months. You need more than $47,000. Garrett looked up. His eyes were hollow. I know, but I do not have anything. This was my only chance. My dad left me a farm, and I am going to lose it in 3 years. 3 years. How many acres did your father start with? Garrett blinked at the question. What? When Joel started farming, how much land? 80 acres, rented. And how long until he owned 800? Garrett thought. 34 years. Ray leaned forward. Your father spent 34 years building 800 acres. You inherited 280 and wanted to get to 460 in 1 year. You were in a hurry. I wanted to make him proud. Joel was proud of you before you bought an acre. He told me that. Month before he died. Said you were a good man. Steady, smart. He was proud. Then why did I do this? Why did I risk everything? Because someone told you growth equals success, and you believed them. Ray stood, walked to the small counter, pulled out a notebook, sat back down, started writing numbers. His handwriting was neat, precise, engineer script. You owe $680,000 at 9.2%, That is $62,560 in interest alone per year. You are paying interest and barely touching principal. In 30 years, you would still owe $550,000. Garrett stared at the numbers. But, Ray kept writing, if I buy your debt from the bank at 60 cents on the dollar, that is $408,000. I refinance you at 4.5% fixed. 20-year term, your payment becomes $25.84 per month, $31,000 per year. You can service that. Why would you do that? Because your father lent me money when no bank would. Because he planted my first crop on faith. Because he was the only friend I had for 20 years. I owe him. This is how I pay. If I default, you lose $400,000. Ray looked at Garrett. His gray eyes were unreadable. Then you will not default. How do you know? Because you are Joel's son. And Joel never quit on anything in his life. Neither will you. Garrett's voice was barely a whisper. I do not deserve this. Probably not. But your father did. And you are his legacy. I will not let his legacy end in foreclosure. Ray tore the page from the notebook, handed it to Garrett. Tomorrow you go to the bank. Tell them you have a buyer for the debt. Give them my name. I will call them Friday. We will close this in 2 weeks. What do you want from me? Your time. 10 hours per week for 2 years. You work for me. I teach you what your father would have taught you if he had lived. Financial discipline, how to farm lean, how to build equity without leverage, how to survive bad years. That is worth $400,000? No, but Joel's friendship was worth more than that, and I never paid him back properly. This is how I do it. Garrett stood, tried to speak, could not, just nodded, extended his hand. Ray shook it. The young man's grip was weak, exhausted, defeated, but still there, still alive. Go home, get some sleep. Tomorrow starts the work. Garrett climbed down from the camper. Ray watched him walk to his truck, watched the taillights disappear down the gravel road. Then he sat back down at his table, looked at his notebook, did the real math. $408,000 to buy the debt. Refinance at 4.5%. If Garrett made every payment for 20 years, Ray would get back $520,000. Profit of $112,000. About 3% annual return. Terrible compared to Treasury bonds currently yielding 4.8%. But if Garrett defaulted, Ray would own 460 acres worth $1.56 million at current values. Minus the $408,000 invested. Net gain of $1.15 million. Either way, Ray won financially. But that was not why he was doing it. He was doing it because Joel Price had taken a risk on an awkward 27-year-old with no experience and $62,000 in savings, had planted his crop on handshake credit, had treated him like family when he had none. And because at 52 years old, Ray was beginning to understand what his mother had tried to tell him on her deathbed. Money without purpose is just numbers. Legacy is what you do with it. Joel had given him a legacy of trust. Ray was passing it to Garrett. The next morning, Ray called Tom Brennan. Tom was 67, semi-retired rancher, had sold most of his operation in 2018, kept 400 acres and a modest herd, lived comfortably on investments in Social Security. He was also the closest thing Ray had to a mentor, though they had never formalized that relationship. Tom's voice was gravelly, sleep-roughened. Cooper, it is 6:30 in the morning. I am buying Garrett Price's debt. Need your advice. Silence on the line. Then, come to breakfast. Betty is making pancakes. Tom's house was 15 miles south, a ranch-style home from the 1970s. Well-maintained, comfortable, not extravagant. His wife Betty met Ray at the door. Short, round, warm. She hugged him. Ray stood awkwardly in the embrace. Physical affection still felt foreign after so many years alone. Sit, eat, we talk after. Breakfast was pancakes, eggs, sausage. Far more food than Ray normally ate. He tried to eat it all. Waste was sin. Betty kept refilling his coffee. By the end, he felt uncomfortably full. Tom led him to the den, leather chairs, bookshelves filled with agricultural texts and ranch histories. Photos of Tom's children and grandchildren covered one wall. 7 grandchildren. Tom's legacy was alive and growing. Tell me about Garrett. Ray explained the situation. The debt, the variable rate, the foreclosure, his plan to buy the debt and refinance. Tom listened without interrupting. When Ray finished, he nodded slowly. You are going to lose money on this deal. Probably. You are doing it anyway. Yes, because of Joel. Yes. Tom stood, walked to the window. Outside, his remaining cattle grazed peacefully. After a long moment, he spoke. I knew Joel for 40 years. Good man, best man I ever knew. He would have done the same for you. I know, but Garrett is not Joel. Garrett is soft, never had to struggle, inherited everything. This might not work. I know that too. Then why risk it? Ray thought about his camper, his 8.7 million, his lack of family, his mother's dying wish that he not let money become his whole life. Because I have more money than I can spend in 3 lifetimes, and no one to give it to. If I lose 400,000 teaching Byron to be like his father, that is a better use than watching it compound in a bond account. Tom turned from the window, looked at Ray with something like pride. You have changed. How? When I met you in 2003, you would have let Garrett fail, would have said it was his own fault. Natural consequences, survival of the fittest. That would have been the smart financial decision. Smart. Tom smiled. But not wise. You are learning wisdom. Better late than never. They talked for another hour. Tom gave advice. How to structure the loan, how to protect himself legally, how to create a teaching relationship that would not breed resentment. Ray took notes, asked questions. Tom had done this before, had mentored younger ranchers, knew the pitfalls. As Ray was leaving, Tom stopped him at the door. One more thing. You are going to need help with this. I can manage. Not what I mean. You are going to need someone to share the load. Garrett is not the only young farmer drowning in debt. There will be others. You cannot save them all alone. Ray had not thought that far ahead. But Tom was right. If word spread that he had rescued Garrett, others would come. The desperate always found hope when someone offered it. Who would help me? Tom's expression turned serious. Clayton Whitmore. The man I sold cattle to? The same. You know his situation? I researched him. 2 million net worth, 2.3 million debt, negative 300,000 real position. Exactly. He is where you could have been if you had made different choices, and where Garrett is headed if he does not change. Clay has lived the mistake. That makes him the perfect teacher. He laughed at me. He did, and then he saw your cash and realized he was the fool. That kind of humiliation either destroys a man or rebuilds him. I think Clay is ready to be rebuilt. Why would he help me? Because he needs redemption, and you are offering him a path to it. Ray considered this. Clay had looked shaken that day. The discovery that the poor-looking farmer was worth 5 times what he was worth had clearly cut deep. Maybe deep enough to create change. I will think about it. Do not think too long. Garrett has 23 days until foreclosure, and there are 8 other young farmers in this county in the same boat. You want to help them all, you need a system, and you need partners. Clay can be one, I will be another. Why would you help? Tom looked past Ray to the photos on the wall. His children, his grandchildren, his legacy. Because I am 67, got maybe 15 good years left. I can spend them playing golf and watching television. Or I can spend them teaching young farmers not to make the mistakes I made. I choose teaching, more useful, more meaningful. What mistakes did you make? Tom laughed. Different ones than you or Clay. But plenty. I will tell you about them while we work. They shook hands. Ray drove home. Thought about Tom's words, about partnership, about building something bigger than himself, about legacy. That afternoon, Garrett called. He had been to the bank, spoken to the loan officer. The bank was willing to sell the debt for 62% of face value, $421,600, higher than Ray had hoped but still workable. Ray called the bank, spoke to the same officer, a man named Frank Delaney, 58 years old, 30 years in agricultural lending. He had seen every scheme, every disaster, every desperate last-ditch attempt to save a failing farm. Mr. Cooper, I understand you want to buy the price note. I do. Can I ask why? You are not in the business of holding debt. Garrett's father was a friend. I am helping the son. Friendship does not make bad debt good. This loan is underwater. The property is worth maybe 1.1 million. He owes 680. If he defaults, you will take a loss. If he defaults, I take the land. I am comfortable with that risk. Frank was quiet for a moment. You are the farmer who paid $145 cash for Whitmore's cattle. I am. I heard about that. Caused quite a stir. Man in an old truck with that kind of cash. Cash spends the same regardless of what vehicle it arrives in. Frank laughed. True enough. All right, Mr. Cooper. I will draw up the sale agreement. 421.6, all cash. We can close Friday if you are ready. I am ready. One more thing. Do you know there are 8 other young farmers in this county in similar situations? I have heard that. If you are interested in buying more debt, we can talk. The bank would rather sell at a discount than foreclose. Foreclosure is expensive, time-consuming, bad publicity. Send me the list. I will review it. Friday, April 12th. Ray walked into First National Bank in Franklin County. He wore the same clothes he always wore. Carhartt jacket, Wrangler jeans, old boots. He carried a cashier's check for $421,600. The bank president came out personally to meet him, shook his hand, offered coffee. Ray declined, wanted to get this done. The paperwork took 90 minutes. Ray read every page, asked questions, clarified terms, finally signed. The debt transferred from First National Bank to Raymond Cooper, private lender. Garrett Price now owed Ray $408,000 at 4.5% fixed over 20 years. When it was done, Frank Delaney walked Ray to the door. Mr. Cooper, that list I mentioned, I sent it to your address. 8 farmers, total debt $3.8 million. Bank would sell at 60 cents on dollar, $2.28 million total. That is a lot of risk. It is, but you strike me as a man who understands risk better than most. Ray took the envelope, thanked him, walked out. In his truck, he opened the envelope. Inside were 8 files, 8 young farmers, ages 26 to 34. Total land among them, 2,400 acres. Total debt, $3.8 million, all facing foreclosure within 90 days. Ray drove to Tom's house. They spread the files on the kitchen table, went through each one. 5 of the 8 could be saved with refinancing. 3 were too far gone. Debt-to-asset ratios above 90%. They would have to liquidate. To save the 5, Ray would need to invest $1.32 million. Added to Garrett's $421,600, that was $1.74 million total, almost exactly half his liquid assets. Tom watched him calculate. That is a lot to commit. It is. You could lose it all if they default. I could. You are still going to do it. Yes. Tom smiled. Then we need help. I am calling Clay Whitmore. Wait. Too late. Tom already had his phone out. Dialing. It rang twice. Clay Whitmore. Clay. Tom Brennan. You remember me? Of course, Mr. Brennan. How are you? Fine. Listen, I am sitting here with Ray Cooper. We are putting together a plan to save 6 young farmers from foreclosure. We need your help. Silence. Then why would you need me? Because you understand debt. You have lived it. These kids need to hear from someone who made the mistakes, who survived them. That is you. I am not exactly a success story. Not yet. But you could be. This is your chance. Help us teach these kids what you learned the hard way. Redemption through service. Interested? Another long silence. Ray could hear Clay breathing on the other end, could almost feel the internal struggle. Pride versus humility. Image versus substance. Finally, Clay spoke. His voice was different. Quieter. Honest. Yes, I am interested. Good. Come to my place tomorrow. 2 o'clock. Bring your financial records. All of them. The real ones. Not the ones you show people. Clay's laugh was bitter. The ones that show I am broke. The ones that show you are honest. See you tomorrow. Tom hung up, looked at Ray. We have our team. He has not agreed to anything yet. He will. I know Clay. Known him since he was a kid. He has been wearing a mask for 20 years. Exhausting. He is ready to take it off. What if he is not ready? Then we do this without him. But I think he is. The fact that he answered my call instead of letting it go to voicemail tells me he is desperate for a way out. We are offering him one. The next day at 2 o'clock, Clay's truck pulled up to Tom's house. Not the Ram 3500. A different truck. Older. Ray recognized it. A 2012 Silverado, used, maybe $15,000 worth. Clay climbed out. He wore jeans and a work shirt. No pearl snaps, no designer boots. Regular Justin's, $50 boots. His face looked tired, older than 49. He walked up to the porch where Ray and Tom waited, extended his hand to Ray first. Mr. Cooper. Ray shook it. Mr. Whitmore. Call me Clay, please. Ray. They went inside. Clay laid his financial documents on the table. The real ones. Every debt, every asset, every payment, every expense. It was brutal honesty, the kind that only came from absolute desperation. Tom and Ray reviewed everything. Tom asked questions. Clay answered. No hedging, no excuses, just facts. After an hour, Tom leaned back. You are negative $300,000 if you liquidated today. Yes, but you have cash flow, barely. 53,000 margin per year. Yes, so you are not bankrupt. You are just trapped. That is a good word for it. Trapped. Ray spoke for the first time. You sold me cattle because you needed to make a loan payment. Clay met his eyes. Yes, you knew I was getting a good deal. I knew you were saving me, even if you did not know it. I knew it. Clay blinked. You did? I checked the county records, saw your payment schedule, saw you had a 28,000 payment due 4 days after our transaction. You needed my cash. Then why did you pay full price? You could have negotiated me lower. Because the goal was not to exploit you. The goal was to buy good cattle at fair value. You needed 28,000, I needed 85 head. Transactions served both purposes. Clay's voice cracked slightly. You could have crushed me, offered 120. I would have taken it. I know. But your desperation was not my opportunity. It was your reality. I do not profit from other men's pain. The room was quiet. Outside a dog barked. Far away. The sound faded. Tom broke the silence. Clay, we want you to help us teach 6 young farmers how to survive debt, how to farm lean, how to make hard choices. You have made every mistake. That makes you qualified. I am the last person who should teach anyone anything. Wrong. Ray's voice was firm. You are exactly the right person. These farmers do not need to hear from me. I am too different, too extreme. They cannot relate. But you look successful. You have the big operation, the respect. When you tell them you are actually broke, they will listen. When you tell them how you got there, they will believe you. When you tell them how to avoid it, they will take notes. What do you get out of this? Ray thought about Joel, about his mother, about 52 years of accumulation with no purpose. A reason to care about something other than my bank balance. Clay looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I am in. What do we do? Tom pulled out a calendar. We organize a meeting, all 6 farmers, plus us 3. We lay out the situation, show them the math, offer them the lifeline, but with conditions. What conditions? They work for us. 10 hours per week, for free, for 2 years. They learn discipline. They learn lean farming. They learn that growth is not the same as success. And if they refuse, then they foreclose. We tried their choice. When is the meeting? Tom looked at Ray. Ray calculated. The foreclosures range from 23 days to 87 days out. They needed to move fast. 1 week from today, April 20th, here, 7 p.m. Tom nodded. I will make the calls. That night, Ray sat in his camper, thought about what he had set in motion. 1.74 million committed. 6 young farmers' futures dependent on his capital and his teaching. Partnership with Tom and Clay. A mentoring program that did not yet exist. It was the most risk he had taken since 1999. And unlike buying land, this risk was not just financial. This was emotional, relational. If these farmers failed, he would feel responsible. If they succeeded, he would feel proud. Either way, he was invested, connected, vulnerable. His mother would have been happy. This was what she had asked for. Use the money for something that mattered, build relationship, create legacy. Joel would have approved too. Helping Garrett was honoring Joel's memory. Helping the other 5 was extending that honor to the whole community. Ray looked at his mother's photo on the wall. Imagine telling her about this plan. Imagined her smile, her relief that he was finally learning what she had tried to teach him. Money is a tool, not a trophy. Use it or it uses you. For 31 years, he had let money use him. Let it dictate every choice, every relationship, every possibility. Now he was using it to build something real, something human, something that would outlive him. Outside the camper, the Nebraska night was cold and clear. Stars thick overhead. Somewhere out there, 6 young farmers were facing foreclosure, losing sleep, losing hope, losing their futures. In 1 week, they would gather at Tom's house, would hear an offer that seemed too good to be true, a lifeline from a strange, silent millionaire and a broken rancher and a wise old man. Some would accept, some would refuse. Pride was powerful, so was shame. But those who accepted would learn what Ray had learned over 31 years. That discipline compounds into freedom. That patience beats speed. That lean beats fat. That substance beats image. And that the richest man in the room is not the one with the most assets. It is the one with the most options. Ray turned off the lamp, lay down on his narrow bed. Tomorrow he would prepare for the meeting, calculate the exact terms for each farmer, structure the loans, plan the curriculum. Tonight, he would sleep better than he had in years. Because tonight, Raymond Cooper was not just a man with 8.7 million. He was a man with a purpose. And purpose was worth more than any compound interest could ever calculate. April 20th, 2024. 6:45 in the evening, Tom Brennan's barn. The barn was old, built in 1967 by Tom's father. Weathered wood siding, metal roof that pinged when it rained. Inside, it smelled like hay and old leather and decades of honest work. Tom had set up folding chairs in a semicircle. 9 chairs, 6 for the farmers, 3 for Ray, Clay, and himself. A whiteboard stood at the front, borrowed from the local agricultural extension office. Clean, waiting for numbers that would either save lives or confirm failures. Ray arrived first, 6:30, 30 minutes early as always. He carried a briefcase, also old, leather cracked at the corners. Inside were the financial files, the loan documents, the teaching plan he and Tom had spent a week developing. Tom came out of the house carrying a coffee urn. His wife Betty followed with cups and a plate of cookies. Chocolate chip. The smell filled the barn, warm, domestic, comforting, an odd contrast to the harsh financial realities about to be discussed. You did not have to do this. Ray gestured at the cookies. Betty smiled. Young men under stress need something sweet, small comfort before hard truth. She left. Tom and Ray arranged the chairs, checked the whiteboard markers, waited. At 6:55, Clay arrived. He drove the Silverado, parked next to Ray's F-250, the 2 old trucks side by side, a statement without words. Clay climbed out carrying a cardboard box. Inside were his financial records. The complete set, everything he had shown Ray and Tom plus more. Bank statements going back 5 years, loan documents, tax returns, the full accounting of how to destroy inherited wealth. He looked nervous. His hands gripped the box too tight, knuckles white. Ray met him at the barn door. You do not have to share everything, just enough to make the point. I need to share it all. If I hold anything back, I am still lying, still pretending. I am done pretending. They walked inside together. Clay set the box on a table near the whiteboard, sat down, stared at his hands. At 7 o'clock exactly, the first truck pulled up. A young farmer named Marcus Webb, 29 years old, 300 acres, owed $420,000, making payments until interest rates spiked, now drowning. He walked into the barn, looking like a man walking to his own execution. Tom greeted him, shook his hand, offered coffee. Marcus took it, held the cup but did not drink, just needed something to do with his hands. Over the next 10 minutes, the others arrived. Ryan Kowalski, 32, 460 acres, 580,000 in debt. Daniel Chen, 26, 240 acres, 310,000 debt. The youngest, looked barely old enough to drive. Then came Lucas Martinez, 34, 380 acres, 490,000 debt. Samuel Peterson, 28, 320 acres, 360,000 debt. And finally, Garrett Price, Ray's first save. The catalyst for all this. He came in last, took the chair furthest from the whiteboard, did not make eye contact with anyone. Tom stood when everyone was seated. The barn was quiet except for the occasional creak of the metal roof expanding in the cooling evening air. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. I know this was not easy. Admitting you need help never is. I am Tom Brennan. This is Ray Cooper. This is Clay Whitmore. We asked you here because we think we can help. But first we need to establish some truth. He walked to the whiteboard, picked up a marker, wrote 6 names. Under each name he wrote numbers. Acres owned, debt owed, interest rates, monthly payments. The numbers were brutal, stark, impossible to hide from when written 12 inches high in black marker. Combined, you 6 men own 2,180 acres, worth approximately $7.4 million at current values. You owe $3.37 million. Your net worth on paper is $4.03 million. Sounds good? Sounds successful. Tom paused. Let the number sink in. But your combined monthly payments are $32,400. Your combined annual debt service is $388,800. Your combined net farm income last year was $297,000. You are negative $91,800 per year. Every year you go deeper in the hole. Every year the banks get richer and you get poorer. The room was silent. The young farmers stared at the board. Some had known their own numbers, but seeing them together, seeing the collective disaster, that was different. In 90 days or less, every one of you will receive foreclosure notices. The banks will take your land, auction it. You will walk away with nothing, maybe worse than nothing if the auction does not cover your debt. You will spend the next decade being sued for deficiency judgments. Marcus Webb spoke. His voice was rough. Then why are we here? To be told we are failures? Number. Tom's voice was gentle. You are here to be offered a choice. What choice? We are broke. Tom gestured to Ray. Ray stood, walked to the whiteboard, picked up a different color marker. Blue, started writing new numbers. Raymond Cooper owns 1,560 acres, worth $5.3 million. Debt zero, net worth $8.7 million, age 52. Ray stepped back. Let them look. Let them process. A murmur ran through the group. 8.7 million. Zero debt. Impossible. The man looked like he survived on Social Security. Marcus found his voice first. How? Ray's answer was simple. I spent 31 years saving more than I spent. Buying land only when I had cash. Never borrowing unless I had no choice. Never spending on anything that did not make me money or keep me alive. That is not realistic. Lucas, this time, you cannot build wealth farming without leverage. I did. You got lucky. Number one, I got discipline. Luck is what happens when you make good choices for 3 decades and refuse to quit when it is hard. Ray walked back to his chair, sat down. Tom took over. Mr. Cooper has agreed to buy your debts from the banks. All 3.37 million. He will buy them at 60 cents on the dollar, 2.02 million. He will then refinance you at 4.5% fixed. 20-year terms. Your monthly payments will drop by an average of 42%. The barn erupted. Questions. Disbelief. Why would anyone do that? What is the catch? This is too good to be true. Tom raised his hand. Silence gradually returned. There are conditions. 3 of them. First, you will work for us 10 hours per week for 2 years, unpaid. You will learn financial discipline, lean farming, how to survive on less, how to build equity slowly. Second, you will attend monthly meetings here for 2 years. Financial education, planning, accountability. Third, you will commit to helping the next generation when you are stable. Pay it forward. Ryan Kowalski stood up. This is charity. I do not take charity. It is not charity. Tom's voice was firm. It is investment. Mr. Cooper is investing in this community, in young farmers who made mistakes but can recover. You will pay back every penny, with interest, just at a rate you can actually afford. Why, Daniel Chen, the youngest? His voice was almost a whisper. Why would he help us? Tom looked at Ray. Ray stood again. When he spoke, his voice carried weight, the weight of 3 decades of isolation, of accumulation without purpose, of wealth without meaning. Because 10 months ago, a friend of mine died. His name was Joel Price, Garrett's father. Joel helped me when no one else would, lent me money when banks said no, planted my first crop on faith, treated me like family when I had none. I never properly thanked him, never properly repaid him. This is how I do it, by helping his son and others like him, by making sure his legacy of generosity does not die with him. The room went quiet. Garrett stared at the floor, his shoulders shaking. Not from fear now, from something else. Gratitude, grief, relief. Clay Whitmore stood. Everyone turned to look. Clay walked to the front, stood next to the whiteboard, looked at the 6 young farmers. My name is Clayton Whitmore. Most of you know me, know my operation. 3,200 acres. Big herd, nice equipment, new trucks. I look successful. I look like I have it all figured out. He paused, pulled papers from his box, held them up. I am broke. Negative 300,000 if I sold everything today. I inherited 3.38 million in 2001. 23 years later, I am worth 2 million. I lost 1.38 million trying to look rich instead of being rich. The shock in the room was palpable. Clay Whitmore admitting he was broke. Impossible. Clay continued, his voice steady now. Committed. I want to show you exactly how I destroyed inherited wealth. Because every mistake I made you are making right now. And if you do not change, you will end up exactly where I am. Trapped. Broke. Pretending. He turned to the whiteboard, started writing his financial history. Year by year, the inheritance, the first loans, the land purchases, the house, the equipment, the refinancing, the lifestyle, every decision, every consequence. It took 20 minutes. When he finished, the whiteboard was covered in numbers. A complete autopsy of financial suicide. In 2003, I borrowed $500,000 to buy land I did not need. Payment was $3,300 per month. I could afford it, but it was the first step, first time I chose growth over stability. In 2005, I built a $420,000 house. Because I wanted people to see I was successful, that cost me $2,800 per month. In 2006, I borrowed $1.2 million against equity, used it to buy more land, more equipment. That added $8,000 per month. By 2008, I was paying $14,000 per month in debt service. When the market crashed, my income dropped by 65%. I could not make payments, had to refinance, extend terms, add fees. My debt went up even while I was paying. Through the 2000s, I kept trying to grow, kept borrowing, kept spending to maintain the image. New trucks, country club, vacations. I told myself I deserved it. I was working hard. I earned the lifestyle. But I did not earn anything. I borrowed it. And every dollar I spent on image was a dollar I could not use to pay down debt. Every truck payment was land I could have bought. Every vacation was equity I lost. By 2024, I owed $2.3 million, made $127,000 per year in debt payments, had $53,000 margin, lived on the edge every single month, one bad year from bankruptcy. Clay turned to face the farmers. His face was raw, exposed, vulnerable. I laughed at Ray Cooper when he walked into my office, saw his old truck, his worn clothes, thought he was small-time, poor, irrelevant. Then he put $145,000 in cash on my desk, and I realized I was the poor one. I was the failure. I was the one living a lie. You are looking at me right now thinking I am successful. I am not. I am a cautionary tale. I am what happens when you confuse appearance with reality, when you let ego drive decisions, when you think debt is a tool instead of a trap. Mr. Cooper is offering you a lifeline. Take it. Swallow your pride. Admit you need help. Learn from people who know better. Because if you do not, you will spend the next 20 years like I did, looking successful, feeling broke, dying slowly under the weight of payments you cannot make. Clay sat down. The barn was absolutely silent. Outside, the sun had set, the temperature dropping. Inside, the space felt different, heavier, more honest. The pretense had been stripped away. What remained was raw truth. Tom stood, walked to the whiteboard, wrote one more set of numbers. If you accept Mr. Cooper's offer, here is what happens. Your debt's transferred to him. Your interest rates drop from an average of 8.6% to 4.5%. Your payments drop from $32,400 per month combined to $18,200. Savings of $14,200 per month. $170,400 per year. That margin is what saves you. That margin is breathing room. That margin is the difference between foreclosure and survival. But you have to earn it. 10 hours per week working for us, learning, changing, building new habits, monthly meetings, financial education, accountability. And when you are stable, you help the next generation. You become what we are being for you. He set down the marker, looked at each farmer. Questions? Marcus Webb raised his hand. What if we say no? Then you foreclose. We tried. You chose differently. No hard feelings. What if we accept and then fail anyway? Then Mr. Cooper owns your land. You lose it anyway. But you tried and you learned. That is worth something. What if we succeed? Then in 20 years, you own your land free and clear. You have built real equity. You pass that to your children or the next generation. You break the cycle of debt. Samuel Peterson spoke. Why should we trust you? Tom smiled. You should not trust us. You should trust the math. Look at the numbers. Your current path leads to foreclosure. Guaranteed. Our path leads to a chance. Maybe 60% chance of success. But 60 is better than 0. Daniel Chen raised his hand. The youngest, his voice small. I am scared. Good. Tom's voice was gentle. Fear is appropriate. You should be scared. You are drowning. But fear can motivate. Fear can drive change. Use it. Ray stood again, walked to the front, looked at the 6 young men. I was 27 when I bought my first land. Everyone told me I would fail. I was too young, too inexperienced, too leveraged. They were probably right. I should have failed. But I did not fail because I refused to quit. I worked 3 jobs, lived in a camper, ate rice and beans for 8 years. I did not date, did not take vacations, did not buy anything except what I absolutely needed. It was lonely. It was hard. Some days I wanted to quit, walk away, go back to the factory where life was easy and predictable. But I did not quit. And 8 years later, I owned 320 acres free and clear. 25 years after that, I own 1,560 acres and 8.7 million. Not because I am smart, not because I am lucky, because I am disciplined, because I understand that compound interest works both ways. Save and it multiplies your wealth. Spend and it multiplies your debt. You are young, you have time. If you start today making different choices, by the time you are my age, you will be wealthier than I am. Because you will have learned the lessons younger. You will have more years to compound. But you have to start today. Not tomorrow, not next month. Today. Ray sat down. The barn was quiet. The 6 farmers sat with their thoughts, their fears, their calculations. Finally, Garfield stood. He had been silent the entire meeting. Now he walked to the front, stood next to the whiteboard. 3 weeks ago, I came to Mr. Cooper's camper at 11 at night. I was shaking, crying, desperate. I was about to lose my father's farm, everything he built, everything he died believing I would protect. I asked for $47,000, a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. Mr. Cooper did not give me $47,000. He bought my entire debt, $421,600, refinanced me at a rate I can afford, gave me a chance. But more than that, he gave me education. These past 3 weeks, I have worked with him, learned from him. He taught me how to read a balance sheet, how to calculate real profit versus accounting profit, how to cut expenses without cutting quality, how to farm lean. I learned more in 3 weeks with him than I learned in 4 years of ag college. Garrett looked at the other farmers. His eyes were clear, certain. I am taking his offer. I am working the 10 hours. I am attending the meetings. I am going to learn everything these men can teach me. And in 20 years, when I own my land free and clear, I am going to help the next generation just like they helped me. He sat down. The silence that followed was different, thoughtful, possibility replacing despair. One by one, the others made their choices. Marcus Webb stood. I am in. Ryan Kowalski. I am in. Daniel Chen, his voice stronger now. I am in. Lucas Martinez stood, looked at Clay, looked at Ray. I spent 2 years trying to be like you, Mr. Whitmore. Bought equipment I could not afford, borrowed money to look successful. Now I know I was copying the wrong man. From now on, I copy Mr. Cooper. I am in. Only Samuel Peterson remained. He sat staring at his hands. Everyone waited. Finally, he looked up. My grandfather lost his farm in the 1980s. Farm crisis, high interest rates, foreclosure. He died broke and bitter. Told my father never to farm. Too risky, too hard. My father listened, worked in town, hated it every day. I bought land 5 years ago because I wanted to prove my grandfather wrong. Wanted to show that farming could work, that we could succeed where he failed. Instead, I am about to lose it exactly like he did. Same story, different decade. His voice broke. I thought I was honoring his memory. Instead, I am repeating his failure. Ray spoke quietly. You are not repeating his failure. You are learning from it. Your grandfather had no help, no options. The banks crushed him and walked away. You have help. You have options. Take them. Samuel wiped his eyes, stood. I am in. Tom walked to the whiteboard, drew a line under all the numbers. Above it, he wrote in large letters, 6 saved. The paperwork took 3 hours. Each farmer's debt was different. Different banks, different terms, different amounts. Ray had prepared individual loan documents for each one. 4.5% fixed, 20-year terms, monthly payment calculated to be 35% of their projected net farm income. Sustainable, manageable, possible. Clay walked each farmer through their new numbers, showed them the payment schedule, the interest calculation, the payoff date. For most of them, the payoff was in 2044. 20 years. It seemed like forever, but it was also achievable, real. Unlike their current trajectory, which ended in foreclosure. By 11 p.m., all 6 had signed. The total transferred debt was $2.02 million. Ray wrote a check to First National Bank. Frank Delaney had come personally to witness the closing. He looked at the check, looked at Ray. Mr. Cooper, this is the largest private loan transaction I have seen in 30 years of banking. I hope you know what you are doing. I do. If even two of them default, you will lose money. Then I will lose money, but I will own land. Land always has value. Frank shook his head. You are either the wisest man I have met or the most foolish. Time will tell. Ray smiled. People have been saying that to me for 31 years. So far, time has sided with wise. The farmers left one by one, trucks disappearing into the night, each man carrying documents that represented a second chance, a reprieve from disaster, a path forward. When they were gone, only Ray, Tom, and Clay remained. They sat in the folding chairs, exhausted, exhilarated. The whiteboard behind them covered in numbers and names and the record of what they had just done. Tom spoke first. We just committed over $2 million and thousands of hours to save 6 farms. We are either saints or idiots. Clay laughed. I vote idiots. Saints would have better fashion sense. Ray smiled. First time he had smiled in weeks. We are neither. We are farmers. We help each other. That is what we do. Tom stood, stretched, his back cracked. Tomorrow the work begins. Weekly meetings with each farmer, teaching sessions, farm visits, accountability check-ins. We need a curriculum, a system. I have been working on that. Ray pulled papers from his briefcase. A teaching outline, week by week for 2 years. Financial literacy, lean farming techniques, equipment maintenance, crop rotation, marketing, everything I learned the hard way. Tom took the papers. Read, nodded. This is good, really good. We can build on this. Clay stood, walked to the whiteboard, looked at the numbers, at his own financial confession, still written there in black marker. Can I say something? Of course. Tonight was the first time in 23 years I told the complete truth about my finances. No hedging, no excuses, just facts. And it was terrifying, but also liberating. He turned to face Ray and Tom. I spent 2 decades lying, to my wife, to my kids, to myself, pretending I was successful while drowning. The weight of that lie was crushing me, killing me slowly. Tonight I took off the mask, showed everyone I am broke, and instead of judgment, I got respect. Because honesty is rarer than success, vulnerability is braver than pretending. He paused, voice thick with emotion. Thank you for giving me a place to be honest, for giving me a purpose beyond maintaining an image. I am done pretending. From now on, I tell the truth, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Ray stood, walked over, extended his hand. Clay shook it. Then Tom joined them. 3 men, different paths, same destination, standing together in an old barn surrounded by evidence of human struggle and human hope. Outside, the April night was cold, stars bright overhead. Somewhere 6 young farmers were driving home with papers that proved someone believed in them. Someone was willing to risk everything to give them a chance. And in a small camper on 1,560 acres, Raymond Cooper would sleep better than he had in years. Because tonight he had learned something more valuable than any compound interest calculation. That money without purpose is just numbers. But money with purpose changes lives. Not just the lives of those who receive it, but the life of the one who gives it. Ray had spent 31 years building wealth. Tonight he had started building legacy. And legacy was the only thing that truly compounded forever. 1 year later, April 20th, 2025, Tom Brennan's barn. The same folding chairs arranged in a semicircle, but everything else had changed. Ray arrived at 6:30 as always, but he did not arrive alone. Garrett Price rode with him. They had been working together that afternoon, checking fence lines on the Price property. Garrett's truck had broken down. Transmission, Ray had offered a ride. In the past year, Garrett had lost 20 pounds, not from stress, from work, physical labor. 10 hours per week minimum working Ray's land, learning to fix equipment instead of replacing it, learning to maintain instead of upgrade. His hands were more calloused now, his face more weathered. He looked older, harder, stronger. They carried boxes into the barn. Inside each box were financial records. 1 year of meticulous documentation. Every dollar earned, every dollar spent, every payment made, every lesson learned. Tom was already there, setting up the whiteboard. His wife Betty brought coffee and her famous chocolate chip cookies. But this time she stayed, sat in the back. She had been part of this journey too, had counseled Maggie Whitmore through the hardest year of her marriage, had become a grandmother figure to some of the younger farmers' wives. Clay arrived next. He drove the same 2012 Silverado, but it looked different now. Cleaner, better maintained. Clay had learned basic mechanics over the past year, could change his own oil, replace brake pads, fix minor issues, saved hundreds in mechanic fees. He carried his own box of records, set it next to the others, looked around the barn, smiled. A real smile, not the forced professional smile from a year ago. This was the smile of a man who could finally breathe. The 6 farmers arrived together. They had started carpooling 6 months ago, saved gas money, built friendship. Marcus Webb drove. His truck held all 6. They climbed out laughing about something. The laughter stopped when they saw the whiteboard. Tom had written in large letters, "1-year report." Everyone found their seats, the same seats they had taken a year ago, but the energy was different. No desperation, no fear, just anticipation, nervous excitement, like students waiting for final grades. Tom stood at the front, looked at each man, let the silence build. 1 year ago tonight, we sat in these chairs and made a choice. 6 of you chose to accept help, chose to commit to change, chose discipline over despair. Tonight we measure what that choice created. He turned to the whiteboard, started writing numbers, but these numbers were different, better. Combined debt 1 year ago, $2.02 million. Combined debt today, $1.78 million. Reduction, $240,000. A murmur went through the group, $240,000 in 1 year. That was $40,000 per farmer average. More than minimum payments, much more. Combined monthly payments 1 year ago, $18,200. Combined monthly payments today, $15,800. Reduction, $3,100 per month, $37,200 per year. More murmuring. Lower payments meant the principal reduction was accelerating. The debt was dying faster. Tom continued. Combined annual income 1 year ago, $297,000. Combined annual income this year, $371,000. Increase, $74,000. Income up, debt down. The trajectory had reversed. But these numbers only tell a part of the story. Tom set down the marker, walked to the boxes, pulled out the first file. Marcus Webb. Marcus, 1 year ago you owed $420,000. You were 90 days from foreclosure. Your marriage was falling apart. Your wife had threatened to leave. You were drinking a 12-pack of beer every night trying to sleep. Marcus nodded, his jaw tight, remembering. Today you owe $368,000, $52,000 reduction. Your payment dropped from $3,600 to $2,400. You have $1,200 per month margin. You have not had a drink in 9 months. Your wife is pregnant with your 3rd child. You look healthy, happy, alive. Marcus's eyes were wet. He did not try to hide it. Tom pulled the next file. Ryan Kowalski. Ryan, 1 year ago, $580,000 debt. Payment was $5,100 per month. You could not make it. We're 3 months behind. Today you owe $518,000, $62,000 reduction. Payment is $4,400. You are current, ahead actually. You prepaid next month. Ryan grinned. First time I have ever been ahead on anything. Tom continued through each farmer. Daniel Chen, Lucas Martinez, Samuel Peterson. Every story was the same. Debt down, income up, payments current, stress reduced, lives improving. When he finished, he looked at Garrett, saved the best for last. Garrett Price, 1 year ago you knocked on Ray Cooper's camper door at 11 at night, shaking, crying, about to lose everything your father built. You owed $680,000. Today you owe $591,000, $89,000 reduction, highest of the group. But more than that, you took over management of 300 acres of Mr. Cooper's land, custom farmed it, cleared $34,000 profit, paid that straight to principal. You did not have to. Contract did not require it. You chose to. Garrett stood, walked to the front, pulled a folded check from his pocket, handed it to Ray. $34,000. This year's profit from your land. I want you to apply it to my loan. Pay down principal. Ray took the check, looked at it, looked at Garrett. You could have kept this, used it for your family. I could have, but you taught me something. Debt is slavery. Every dollar I pay down is freedom I buy back. I want to be free. Ray folded the check, put it in his pocket. You will be. Clay stood next, walked to the front. Tom handed him the floor. Clay's voice was steady, strong. 1 year ago, I stood here and confessed I was broke, admitted I had destroyed inherited wealth, showed you every mistake I made. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, and the most important. He turned to the whiteboard, started writing his own numbers. 1 year ago, net worth $2 million, debt $2.3 million, annual debt service $127,000, margin $53,000. He wrote new numbers below. Today, net worth $2.6 million, debt $1.95 million, annual debt service $108,000, margin $92,000. He set down the marker, turned to face the group. How did I add $600,000 net worth in 1 year? I did not inherit it, did not win the lottery, did not get lucky. I stopped spending, stopped pretending, stopped trying to look successful. I sold my country club membership, saved $12,000 per year. I canceled subscriptions I did not use, saved $4,000. I stopped eating lunch in town every day, started packing, saved $3,600. I learned to do my own truck maintenance, saved $2,800. Small changes, individually meaningless. Combined, they saved me $23,400 per year. I paid that straight to debt principal. But the bigger change was not financial. It was mental. For 23 years, I measured success by what people saw. My truck, my house, my clothes. I was a fraud. This year, I measured success by what I own. My equity, my margin, my freedom. And for the first time in 2 decades, I actually am successful. Not because I look rich, because I am getting richer. He pulled out his own check, handed it to Ray. $51,000. I sold 600 acres to a neighbor. Good price. After paying down my corresponding loan, I had $51,000 profit. I want you to have it. Ray stared at the check. Clay, this is too much. It is not enough. You gave me something more valuable than money. You gave me honesty, purpose, a way to rebuild my life with integrity. $51,000 does not begin to repay that. Ray tried to hand the check back. I cannot accept this. Then donate it. Tom spoke up. Use it for the next generation. Start a fund. Help other farmers like we helped these 6. Ray looked at Tom, at Clay, at the 6 farmers watching. Slowly he nodded. I will start a fund, the Joel Price Agricultural Stability Fund, for young farmers facing circumstances beyond their control. Medical bills, natural disasters, market crashes, not for those who overspent, for those who got unlucky. Clay smiled. Perfect. I will contribute every year. Build it. Make it sustainable. Tom stood, walked to his own box, pulled out a folder, handed it to Ray. I am contributing $100,000. Seed capital. My wife and I discussed it. We have more than we need. This is a better use than watching it sit in bonds. Ray opened the folder. Inside was a check, $100,000, made out to the Joel Price Agricultural Stability Fund. His hands trembled slightly. Holding these checks, holding this trust, holding this responsibility. For 31 years, he had worked alone, saved alone, built wealth in isolation. Now he was part of something bigger, a community, a legacy, a movement. Betty Brennan stood from the back, walked forward. She held her own envelope, handed it to Ray. Tom and I talked. We are 70 and 67. We have 7 grandchildren. They are all taken care of, but there are youngers who are not. Young families who need help. We want to contribute annually. This is for this year. Ray opened the envelope, a check for $25,000. His voice was rough when he spoke. I do not know what to say. Say you will use it wisely. Betty's eyes were kind. Say you will help young families stay together. Keep their land, build their futures. That is all we want. I will, I promise. The room was quiet, sacred almost. Money changing hands, but more than money, legacy transferring. Hope multiplying, purpose compounding. Tom returned to the whiteboard. We now have $210,000 in the fund. Joel Price Agricultural Stability Fund. Ray will administer it. Clay and I will help. We will create criteria, applications, a process. Our goal is to help 10 families per year, $20,000 each. Not loans, grants, given to those who need it most. Those who are farming right, living lean, but got hit by something they could not control. Marcus Webb raised his hand. Can we contribute? Tom looked surprised. You are still paying down your own debt. I know, but Mr. Cooper helped me when I had nothing. I want to help others the same way. Even if it is small, even if it is just $500. I want to be part of this. One by one, the other farmers agreed, committed to contributing, amounts ranging from 200 to 1,000 per year. Small amounts individually, but together adding another 3,800 annually. Ray stood, looked at these men, these young farmers who a year ago were drowning. Now they were contributing, giving back before they were even fully saved. It was the most powerful testament to transformation he had ever witnessed. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. Each farmer presented his full-year financial report: income, expenses, savings, debt reduction, lessons learned, mistakes made, victories won. Daniel Chen had learned to weld, saved $8,000 in equipment repairs by doing them himself. Lucas Martinez had started selling eggs from a small chicken operation, added $6,000 annual income. Samuel Peterson had negotiated better prices on seed by buying in bulk with the other farmers, saved everyone 12%. Small innovations, individual initiative, but collectively they represented a culture shift from consumption to production, from spending to saving, from dependence to self-reliance. At 10 p.m., Tom called the meeting to close, but before everyone left, Ray asked to speak. He walked to the front, stood where he had stood a year ago, where he had revealed his $8.7 million net worth, where he had offered to buy their debts. 1 year ago, I made an investment, $2.02 million. Financially, it was a poor decision. I could have put that money in treasury bonds at 4.8%, would have earned $96,960 in interest, risk-free. Instead, I bought your debts, refinanced you at 4.5. My return, even if you all pay perfectly for 20 years, is barely 3% annually. Terrible investment. But this past year, I gained something treasury bonds could never provide. I gained purpose, community, legacy. I gained the knowledge that my money matters, that it is changing lives, building futures, honoring my friend Joel's memory. You thanked me tonight, gave me checks, praised my generosity, but you have it backward. I should thank you. You gave me a reason to care about something other than my bank balance. You gave my wealth meaning. His voice caught. He paused, steadied himself. My mother died 21 years ago. Before she died, she made me promise not to let money become my whole life, to find someone, have a family, be happy. I broke that promise, spent 2 decades alone, building wealth for its own sake, becoming rich and staying lonely. You 6 men, and Tom and Clay and Betty, you became my family. This barn became my home. These meetings became the highlight of my month, not because of the financial reports, because of the connection, the shared struggle, the collective victory. So thank you for letting me help, for giving my life purpose, for teaching me that compound interest is not the most powerful force. Community is. The room was silent. Several men were crying, not ashamed, just moved. Garrett spoke. Mr. Cooper, you saved my father's legacy. You saved my farm. You saved me. I will never be able to repay that. Ray looked at him. Then do not try. Just pay it forward. 20 years from now, when you are debt-free and stable, when some young farmer comes to you desperate and afraid, you help him the way I helped you. That is the repayment. I will, I promise. The meeting ended. The farmers left. Tom and Betty walked back to their house. Clay and Ray remained in the barn, cleaning up, folding chairs, erasing the whiteboard. Clay spoke first. You changed my life. You changed your own life. I just gave you permission to be honest. Same thing. They worked in comfortable silence. After a while, Clay stopped, sat down, looked at Ray. Can I tell you something? Of course. A year ago, I hated you. When you walked into my office with that cash, when I found out you were worth $8 million, I hated you, resented you, felt like you made me look bad just by existing. Ray nodded. I know. You knew? Your face when you Googled me. I saw the hatred, the shame, the anger. And you still offered to help me? Especially then. Hatred that strong comes from pain. You were in pain, needed help. I gave it. Clay's voice was thick. I spent a year learning from you, learning discipline, learning humility, learning that wealth is not about appearance. And somewhere along the way, the hatred turned to respect, then to admiration, now to something like love. Not romantic, brotherly. You are the brother I never had, the mentor I desperately needed. Ray was quiet, processing. He had never had a brother, never had close friends except Joel. The idea that Clay saw him this way was foreign, uncomfortable, but also deeply moving. I feel the same. About you, about Tom, about these farmers. For 31 years I was alone. Now I am not. It is strange. Good strange. They finished cleaning, walked out together. The April night was cool. Stars overhead. Their trucks sat side by side. The old F-250 and the used Silverado. Both reliable, both paid for, both symbols of men who had stopped performing and started living. Clay extended his hand. See you next week? Ray shook it. Next week. 6 months later. October 2025. The first grants from the Joel Price Agricultural Stability Fund were awarded. 10 families, $20,000 each. Total distribution, $200,000. The recipients were carefully selected. A young couple whose barn had burned. Insurance did not cover full replacement. A farmer whose wife needed surgery. Medical bills crushed them. A family whose combine broke during harvest. Could not afford repairs. Real needs, real people, real impact. Ray, Tom, and Clay personally delivered each check, visited each family, heard their stories, offered advice, connection, hope. One recipient was a 26-year-old named David Marsh. He farmed 160 acres, owed $280,000, was making it work, barely. Then his father died. Heart attack, unexpected. The funeral cost $18,000. David did not have it, was about to take a predatory loan at 19% interest. Ray handed him the check, $20,000. David stared at it, could not speak, just held it, shaking. His wife Sarah stood next to him, holding their infant daughter. She was crying, not sad tears, relief tears. The tears of someone who had been drowning and suddenly found air. Why? David finally found his voice. Why would you help us? You do not know us. Ray looked at this young farmer, saw himself at 27, desperate, leveraged, afraid, but fighting. Because someone helped me when I had nothing. Now I help you. Someday you help someone else. That is how it works. How do we pay you back? You do not. This is a grant, not a loan. Use it, stay afloat, survive, thrive. Then when you are stable, you contribute to the fund, help the next generation. David nodded, unable to speak. His wife hugged Ray, held on tight, whispered thank you over and over. Ray stood awkwardly, still not comfortable with physical affection, but less uncomfortable than a year ago. He was learning, slowly. That connection required vulnerability. That helping meant feeling. That legacy demanded love. By December 2025, the Joel Price Agricultural Stability Fund had helped 10 families. Word spread. Other farmers contributed. Small amounts, $20, $50, $100. It added up. The fund balance grew to $260,000, enough for another year of grants, maybe more. Clay proposed an idea, annual fundraiser dinner. Invite the whole agricultural community, tell the story, inspire contributions, build the fund larger. Tom agreed. We could help 50 families per year instead of 10, change the whole region. Ray was hesitant. That feels like showing off. It is not showing off. Clay's voice was firm. It is leadership. You built something good. Now let others be part of it. Let them contribute. Let them feel the same purpose you feel. After much discussion, Ray agreed. The first annual Joel Price Agricultural Stability Fund dinner was scheduled for March 2026. March 15th, 2026. The event was held at the county fairgrounds. Expected attendance was maybe 100. 374 people showed up. Farmers, bankers, agricultural suppliers, whole families. They filled the hall beyond capacity. Extra chairs were brought in. People stood along the walls. Tom organized the event. Clay handled logistics. Ray reluctantly agreed to speak. He stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces. Farmers he knew, many he did not. All here because they believed in what had been built. His prepared remarks were on note cards, 3 by 5, neat handwriting. But standing there looking at this crowd, he realized prepared remarks would not work. This required truth, raw, unfiltered. He set the cards aside. My name is Raymond Cooper. 2 years ago, I was worth $8.7 million. I owned 1,560 acres debt-free. I had more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I was also completely alone. No wife, no children, no close friends. I lived in a camper, ate meals by myself, went days without speaking to another human being. I was the richest lonely man in 3 counties. The room was absolutely silent. Then a young man named Garrett Price knocked on my door at 11 p.m. He was about to lose his farm. His father, Joel, had been my only real friend. Joel died of cancer in 2021. I never got to thank him properly for helping me 30 years ago. So I helped Garrett, not because it was a good investment, because it gave my money purpose, gave my life meaning. That led to helping 6 more farmers, then 10 families through the fund, then more. Each time I helped someone, my wealth decreased on paper, but my life increased in value. I learned that money is just a tool, not a trophy. The goal is not to die with the most money. The goal is to live with the most meaning. This fund, the Joel Price Agricultural Stability Fund, it exists because one man showed kindness to a stranger 30 years ago. Joel Price helped me when no bank would. Now I help others the same way, and they will help the next generation. That is legacy, not what you leave behind, what you set in motion. Tonight we have helped 10 families. With your support, we can help 100, 1,000. We can change the entire agricultural community of this region. Not through handouts, through hand-ups. We help those who are doing right, living lean, working hard, but got hit by circumstances beyond their control. The fund is not about me, it is about us, about community, about farmers helping farmers, about ensuring that the next generation can survive and thrive. Ray stepped back from the podium. Applause erupted. Not polite applause, standing ovation, people on their feet, cheering, some crying. That night, the fund raised $147,000 in new contributions, pledges for another $230,000 annually. The Joel Price Agricultural Stability Fund would help over 60 families the following year. Ray sat at a table in the back, watching, overwhelmed. Tom sat next to him, clapped him on the shoulder. "You did good, son. I just told the truth. Sometimes that is all it takes." Clay walked over, sat down. He had been networking, talking to potential contributors. His face was flushed, excited. "I have 3 more farmers who want to join our teaching program, and the bank president wants to meet with us about partnership. They want to refer struggling farmers to us before foreclosure." Ray absorbed this. The program was growing, expanding, becoming something bigger than he had imagined. "Can we handle more?" "We will have to. This is too important to turn people away. We will recruit more mentors, expand the curriculum, build systems." Tom nodded. "I know 5 retired farmers who would help teach. Men with 40, 50 years experience. Good men, wise men. They are bored in retirement. This would give them purpose." Ray thought about it, about growth, about expansion, about building something that would outlive all of them. "Okay, let us do it, but we do it right. Quality over quantity. We only accept farmers who are serious, who will do the work, who will change." Agreed. The event ended near midnight. Ray drove home alone. Well, not quite alone. His truck bed was full of donated goods. Cookware for farm families. Tools, equipment, seeds. The community had brought items to donate along with money. He pulled into his property, parked next to the camper, sat in the truck for a long moment, looking at the small metal box he called home. He could afford a house now, a nice one, but he had not built one, partly because he did not need it, partly because the camper reminded him where he came from, how far he had traveled, what mattered. Inside, he made tea, sat at the small table, pulled out his notebook, started calculating. Fund balance, $407,000 after tonight. Projected annual contributions, $230,000. Estimated families helped next year, 60. 20-year projection at current growth, over 2,000 families. The numbers were staggering. What had started as a personal gesture to honor Joel's memory had become a regional institution, a movement, a legacy that would compound across generations. Ray's phone rang. Rare, he looked at the screen. "Garrett." He answered. "Hello? Mr. Cooper." Garrett's voice was excited. "I hope I am not calling too late." "It is fine. What is it?" "Sarah and I, we wanted you to be the first to know. We are naming our son Joel after my father, and we want you to be his godfather." Ray was silent. Godfather, a role, a relationship, a responsibility. things he had never had, never expected to have. Garrett, I do not know what to say. Say yes, please. You saved our farm, saved our family, taught me how to be a man my father would be proud of. Let us honor you this way. Ray's voice was rough. I would be honored. Thank you. We will talk more tomorrow. But Sarah insisted I call tonight. She said you needed to hear someone say thank you. After he hung up, Ray sat very still. Godfather to Joel's grandson, named after Joel, the circle was complete. He looked at his mother's photo on the wall, imagined telling her, imagined her smile, her relief, her joy that he had finally found family. She had asked him to promise not to let money become his whole life. He had broken that promise for 20 years. But now, finally, he was keeping it. Money was just numbers and accounts. This, connection, community, legacy, this was life. Ray pulled out his journal. He had kept one since 1999. Every day, recording expenses, income, savings, debt reduction. For 27 years, it had been purely financial. Tonight, he wrote something different. March 15th, 2026. Today, I learned that the best investment I ever made was not land, not savings, not treasury bonds. It was time. Time spent teaching, time spent helping, time spent building relationships that will outlive my bank accounts. I am 54 years old, worth approximately 9.1 million, but that number does not define me anymore. What defines me is that I am godfather to Joel Price's grandson, mentor to 13 farmers, friend to Tom and Clay, part of a community that cares about something bigger than profit. My mother asked me not to let money become my whole life. Mom, I finally understand. Wealth is not what you accumulate, it is what you set in motion. Legacy is not what you leave, it is what you inspire others to become. I spent 31 years saving every dollar. The next 30 years I will spend making every dollar count. Not by hoarding it, by using it. To change lives, build community, honor your memory and Joel's. This is the compound effect you taught me about. Not compound interest. Compound impact. One act of kindness multiplied across time becomes a movement. One investment in a person multiplies across generations. One choice to help instead of hoard changes everything. I am rich, not because of my net worth, because of my connections, my purpose, my legacy. That is the final lesson. The one it took 54 years to learn. Money compounds, but meaning multiplies. Ray closed the journal, turned off the light, lay down in his narrow bed. Outside, the Nebraska night was cold, but inside the camper was warm. Not from heat, from purpose, from legacy, from the knowledge that 31 years of discipline had built something that would outlive him. The Joel Price Agricultural Stability Fund would help farmers for decades, maybe centuries. The teaching program would train generations. The community would strengthen. The impact would multiply. And somewhere Joel Price was smiling. His friend had finally learned what Joel always knew, that the richest man is not the one who dies with the most money. It is the one who lives knowing his wealth made a difference. Raymond Cooper closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would wake at 4:30, work his land, teach his students, build his legacy, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of generosity at a time, compounding not for himself, but for everyone who came after. That was the final transformation. From accumulator to distributor, from miser to mentor, from lonely millionaire to beloved leader. The compound effect had come full circle, and the interest it paid was not measured in dollars. It was measured in lives changed, families saved, communities strengthened, legacies built. That was wealth, real wealth, the kind that compounded forever. The end.